thing links up just to make sure we are all connected. And we are all connected. Excellent. All right. Well, hello. If you've made it this far, congratulations. This is hopefully the final installment of Edda Reborn, my reading of Lawrence Austin Waddell's The British Edda. And don't let the name confuse you as we go over this last portion tonight. You will understand just how important this event of our past, of our ancestral past, means and what it means for the future and what it has meant for the last 5,000 years since the time it occurred, who we've been fighting the whole time, and that their MO never changes. For those of you who don't know who I am, this is your first time coming here. I am the author of Priestcraft Beyond Babylon. Okay, you can find this on Barnes. You can find it on my website, Semper Fi LLC, where you will also find the world's greatest hot sauces. I make 30 plus different varieties. So what am I? Former U.S. Coast Guard, former IBEW Electricians Union stooge, and then I created my own business in San Diego, and I've been doing it for the last 13 years, making the greatest hot sauce on the goddamn planet. And my two only promotional things that I do besides my own business are the things that Dr. Glidden offers and the things that Dr. Monzo offers, because one of my main focuses is your health, our family's health, and pulling ourselves away from the demonic practices of allopathy. So on my site, you'll find links for this stuff too, the 90 essential nutrients. And if you're here or if you're on Rumble on Wednesdays with me, I broadcast on two separate channels on Wednesdays with Dr. Peter Glidden, and we answer your health questions. Okay, so enough of the rundown. Let's get into it. Boink. And let me read to you first. I say in the stream description here, and this is our logo for the night. This is our hopefully final installment. We're on page 366 of 452 total, and we're already in the appendices. So like I said, if you haven't seen any of these other ones leading up to now, go to the Rumble channel called BAALBUSTERS, Ball Busters. You'll have all the information there you need. Start with the introduction and work your way through. This was brought back by popular demand. I've gone over this and read this previously, and now we're doing a refresher. And this is the best reading of the two. The Diabolical Cult and their curse over mankind is stronger now than ever before. Their spell has poisoned nearly every mind, and most are hypnotically following their lead. The perversion, the blatant disregard for reason and consequence, and the bold recklessness of their threats have given only a few that inescapable feeling, a calling to action they can't and won't ignore. As this cult has in the past, they target the most innocent. They convince a depraved world to do unspeakable things to their own children. All seem distracted or disinterested, but some of us hear the war drum in their hearts and know exactly what our role is, our purpose, and our destiny. Are you one as well? Are you this era's doomers? And when you get into Edda, that's exactly what Thor calls himself. Thor is the template. Adam from the Genesis, that is Thor. And it's another name, another title for Adam in the Edda, which is 5,000 years old. And the Semites stole everything, co-opted it, butchered it, inverted it, and here we are. So we're on page 366. This is the abode of the Green Man as Eden. The description of the weird cave abode of the Green Man with his green chapel is in series with the Eddic account of the cave dwellings of Eden, which is called in the Edda E-Green or Evergreen, which is exactly like I said previously. Evergreen trucking or shipping. Remember Clinton? Remember the train car full of baby parts, like 17,000 bodies? Yeah. And the site of which, by the Eddic and other evidence we have been led to locate at Carchemish, with its round, ruined, covered hill on the bank of the Euphrates at its first ford. And the description in this British epic generally describes the topography of Carchemish, which is Turkey, as in like Turkish Ashkenazi. Anigh a green bank by a riverside, a round knoll and a clearing of the land, that cunningly beside a ford was planned. Much like a cave or crevice was that knoll, and all about it grew the lank knot grass. Of size to admit a man there was a hole, and all that place was hollow as a bowl. Is this the chapel? Said the gentle knight. Yea, God, at midnight, when the skies are foul, the devil might tell his maidens in good plight, in such a waste as this will not much moon in sight. Oh yeah, so just to double back here, the Edenites, this is the sorcerer class. It's the serpent wolf cult. You can call it the Saturn cult. You can call it moon cult. Moon cults always are into child sacrifice. They're the antithesis of our people, and our people saw, and conquered because they were repulsed by their behavior and how they were terrorizing the people of that territory and stealing their children and doing all kinds of horrific things to them. So finally they had enough and they put down the cult. Yea, God, this oratory is ill beseen, all herbs overgrown, so foully as it lies. It falls but fit this fellow in the green should deal devotion here in devil wise. I feel it is the fiend who with his lies hath lured me to this chapel of mischance, this cursed kirk, to slay me in some guise. All right, Arthurian versions of the Eddic names, personal names of King Arthur's knights and ladies devised for the Edda. The personal names of several of Arthur's knights, moreover, in the late British epic version are obviously the old Eddic titles of Thor and his knights expanded to make separate personages to swell the galaxy of knights of the Round Table. So what they're saying here, for those of you who are maybe jumping in on this in the very first day and haven't seen the first 5 parts, which are hours upon hours of information, this 5,000-year-old tale that has been preserved on reliefs and other etches and seals from as far back as 5,000 years ago in Sumer to Babylon to the Indus Valley. Everywhere our people went and established a civilization, Egypt, they retell this same story because of this was such an important event in history. And they're saying that this is also, even though the memory, even of the people who keep on transcribing this over time, was the root influence and inspiration for Arthur and his knights, but they put it in a medieval time setting, which is another misconstruing of its historical, true, real origins. So they're saying that's why they're talking about Thor, and they're like, what are you talking about there? Round Table, Thor. You get it now? Okay. So thus, Sir Bors is evidently coined from Thor's Eddic title of Bur. Sir Bidver or Bedivere, the Vidar title of Gun, Cain, or Gawain. Bishop Baldwin is the canting hypocrite of Wolf Priest of Eden. The canting hypocrite Wolf Priest of Eden, Bodo or Woden. And Woden, so there are three. This was a matriarchal cult the serpent wolf cult. Woden is not Odin, and Odin isn't a separate person from Thor. Thor's other title is Odin. Woden was a sorcerer, complete antithesis, child killer, piece of shit. Woden was. And Balder, or Loki, aka Abel of the Bible, and Lucifer was the illegitimate son of the matriarch sorceress El or Elu. You're coming in as we've already finished that story, and now these are the appendices, and this is the additional information and additional proofs of the historicity of this story. The immortal Lancelot appears to have his title based on Balder's Eddic descriptive title of the Lance Bearer, or with his lance all hot. And the weird Morgan Le Fay evidently bears the name of the Edenite mother weird El, or Helene, as Mare or Mary, the Jinn woman of the Fae, or deadly serpent fate. The former wide prevalence of the Green Man, a legend in Britain, seems also evidenced by the frequency, even at the present day, of the signboards inscribed "The Green Man," affixed to old country inns in the environs of London and in the south of England generally. So now we're going back to scene 19. The binding of Loki or Lucifer by Cain or Saint Michael in Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, and British versions, long before those lying liars who made up their whole history in the Hellenistic period, when Ptolemy, that dumb asshole, decided to give these Semitic fucks an education and taught them how to read and write in Greek. And so they went, revising history, putting themselves in the center of things, stealing our history, co-opting it, and making the world over time believe that everything that's ever happened was Semitic and had nothing to do with Gothic Aryan people. All right, the binding of Loki or Lucifer by Cain. We already said that. Sumerian version of the binding of the serpent of the serpent dragon. Whoops. References to the binding of Loki or Lucifer by Adam as Dar for the binding by Cain was presumably done under Dar's orders. Dardanos, Adam, Ad, or R meaning Aryan. Her, is another term for Aryan. These are all titles. So you see Tur or Dur, Arthur. This is Thor. Okay? Adam is Thor. And this is the proofs have been going along the whole time. You'd have to double back to get more information on that. References to the binding of Loki or Lucifer by Adam as Dar for the binding by Cain was presumably done under Dar's orders. A scene figured on many of the pre-Christian monuments of ancient Britain and Scandinavia occur in the Sumerian hymns thus. Dar is the warrior whose lasso overthrows the foe. The tooth of the worm or orm that comes forth from the mountain cave, he Dar binds. Babylonian versions of the binding of Balder or Abel. The Chaldean Semites, Babylonians, deified this son paramour of the aboriginal matriarch under the name of Aplu, the son of, or Tammuz, the established son, with his mother name as Nana or Inanna, which is also the name of Balder's wife in the Prose Edda as their divine mother-son. And yes, mother-son sounds exactly as gross as it is. It's as gross as it sounds. Yeah, they're that Frankish type of mentality or practice. Woden was the father. Woden gets killed off. It's a mother-son cult. They're fucking. Yeah, exactly. Just like the story of Tammuz. And called the fourth month of their calendar the month of the binding or imprisonment of Aplu or Tammuz. This month corresponds to our June-July. Egyptian version. The Egyptian version is given in the account of Horus, the young solar hero and son of Osiris, fettering Set and binding him in chains. British version of the binding of Loki's suit or Lucifer Satan. Caedmon's vivid description in his Genesis poem of the binding of Lucifer or Satan is obviously based entirely on the Eddic account of the Edda. EDA is its original spelling, and it basically means the knowledge. You might as well call it the Bible of the Aryans, based on real people who actually lived, who believed in a monotheistic system. They believed in the sun being the greatest gift by the benevolent creator. Therefore, they were interchangeable with either veneration of the sun or the belief in the monotheistic benevolent creator. One. We brought that to civilization. We created civilization. Other people co-opted it and slapped their name on it after us. A lot of spite. All right, so the poem Binding of Lucifer or Satan is obviously based entirely on the Eddic account of the binding of Loki, for there is no reference whatever to the binding of Satan in Genesis or in the other books of the Hebrew Old Testament. He calls the binder God, a term which we have seen was used by the later Goths as a synonym for Gott, which means Goth. Gott mit uns. God is with us. Or God, the ordinary spelling of Goth in the Edda, the final H in Goth only being introduced by the Romans. It never used by the Goths themselves. And we shall see later that the actual human historical binder, the Duke Cain the Goth, was deified by the Babylonians as Marduk, or the Sun Duke, their chief god. Caedmon makes Satan or Lucifer thus describe his bonds. Alas, could I but use my hands and have my freedom for an hour. One winter hour, then with this host I would, but bounds of iron crush me down. The bondage of my chains is heavy, firmly are hell's fetters forged upon me. Ensnaring links and heavy shackles hold me, my ways are trammeled up. My feet are bound, my hands are fastened, I may not escape out of my bonds, but mighty gyves of tempered iron hammered hot press hard upon me. God has set his foot upon my neck. Rape of Eve, aka Europa. The Rape of Eve in Sumerian, Indian, Greek, and Arthurian versions. Sumerian version of the rape. The Sumerian, Babylonian, and Hittite tradition of this event is seen in the numerous representations of the rescue of Eve for Eden by King Dar, that's Thor, that's Adam, as in Adam and Eve, on the sacred seals, and doubtless literally references to it will be found in the Sumerian and Hittite Psalms when searched for. Indian Vedic version of the Rape of Eve, the Asi or Freya, and Freya means friend. And we get into the Orlinda book, the Frisians, who do they venerate? Freya. Remarkable literal confirmation of this Eddic record is found in the ancient commentary on the Vedic hymns of the eastern branch of the Aryans, dating in its present form to before 400 BC, but believed to represent literally a much more archaic text. As this version is so historically important in confirming the literal authenticity of the Edda, it is here cited in detail, especially as it is so rich in the Eddic titles of Adam, Eve, and Tai or Balder. Tai as in Typhon or Set in Egypt, right? Actually, and Greece. Thor is called not only by his Sanskrit title of Puru of the sun, the Sanskrit form of the Eddic Bur, but also the Great Father, protector of men. Yes, and just to reiterate this, sort of like that guy from Germany. Everybody was so happy when he came by because he liberated and made their lives better. So too did they feel about the Gothic Aryans when they would put down the treacherous, disgusting debauchery and rampant human and child sacrifice that was occurring in these territories because they brought law, order, justice, and fairness to the land, to all people. They were Thor's ancestors, so you can say his great-grandfather's grandfather, his father, were called the Shields. They were the protectors. They were the guardians. That's our purpose. the protector of men, Priti of the Binda, i.e., the Eddic burr of the Vind, and Indra, or Indara, or Dara of the Inn. Eve is called Asi of Ur, and Priya, the Eddic Freya. Balder is styled Tayo, the Eddic Tai or Tiva. When you see Balder, it's Baal, it's Typhon, it's Lucifer, it's Abel from the Bible. They flip that around too. Everything's inverted when it comes to the Semitic retelling of bullshit. Balsa's mother, the matriarch El, is called Taya, and she's also the inspiration for Tiamat, Lilith, Kali, Medea, and a bunch of others. Oh yeah, and Elu Limno, the evil demon gods of Babylonian black magic that you can find in Michael W. Ford's book called Maskim Whole, or you can get the important parts out of it when you get mine, because I talked about that book in there. Taya, or El, the chastiser of children, being jealous of his cohabitation with, Thor's cohabitation with Eve, and of the great father's passion for her, calling himself Indra, said to Tayobara, Bajra, at her side for unyoking them. Priti of Binda, again, this is another title for Thor. O Taya Bajra mine, cut him off from Priya, which would again be Freya or Eve. That so said Balder, Bajra destroyed Priti's alliance by his craft. Then bereft of her, the protector of men wandered about, love mad. If you see the connection here between that and another Greek story, we'll get into that in a second. You're going to see this in Greece here. I think we're coming up to it soon. Indian epic version of the rape. The Indian epic version significantly calls the kidnapper of Asi of Ur, which is Eve, by the title of King of All Wishing Vase. Obviously, the all-wishing magic bowl or holy grail of Eden, which was in Tai or Balder's keeping. Moreover, he was a Gandharva, or of a class of magical sprites who had water nymphs as their mistresses, and we have seen that the magic of Heidi, which is El, where is it? Heidi, Woden, and Balder, and their water nymph weirds is called the magic of Gander. I know you don't probably hear this often, but if you want to get to the root of what this child sacrifice cult is, remember that term. Okay? The magic of Gander. What are they doing? What's the Epstein shit all about? What are the roots to it, even if they forgot the true meaning of it? It's right there. The version, like the above Vedic version, in its last line, makes Puru to wander over the world, seeking for Urvasi as the lost Eurydice. Greek version of the rape as Eurydice. The early nucleus of this Greek mythic version seems disclosed in this last line of the above Vedic verse. Then bereft of her, the protector of men wandered about love mad. On this basis, certainly the Greek and Roman bards composed their legend of Orpheus. You know, the one with the lyre. He was a creator of music, allegedly. Wandering, lamenting over the world in vain search of his lost wife Eurydice, now seen to be the Uruv Asi of the Sanskrit, and Uruf Asa, or Europa. Remember Europa, the last battle, the raping of Europa? They said that was Zeus that did that in the story because they bastardized it. It was actually Balder, or this Loki character in real life, stealing Eve and taking her off and raping her. Thor comes out. Thor is the template of Zeus. Zag, Sag, and Sig are all other titles of Thor, and it's not Zeus that rides off with her. This is what I'm talking about. When these Semitic fucks get into somebody's culture, they invert everything. They turn the good into the bad and the bad into the good. That's why we, for the most of our lives, have hated a great man from Germany or a great man from Libya, and everybody else they've told us to hate in between. The Euryphessa, wife of Prometheus, or Burmioth of the Edda. Eurydice, it will be remembered, was in this version the daughter of Lake Daimon, now disclosed as the demon Loki of the Edda, who as the paramour of Mother El might be called father of Eve. According to it's not though, right? She was a Vestal of the cult. She wasn't related to any of them. She was actually a Gothic Aryan, just like Thor, and she happened to be an Amazonian. According to the Greek legend, the nymph was the wife of Orpheus, a native of Thrace, a name presumably related to Troy of the Edda, the city of Thor, but he is made with poetic license to have been a contemporary and associate of Jason and the Argonauts, implying perhaps that he was traditionally a great sailor. His wife, fleeing from the pursuit of Astraeus, a titan of darkness, was bitten by a serpent and thus carried to Hades or hell. Like Eve, she was rescued thence by her husband. Now, when they say bitten by a serpent, this is the serpent cult. Bewitched by, taken away, taken off, stolen, abducted, and carried down into Eden, which was called hell. And they had a cave there. They called it Valhalla. Everybody says, "Oh, when you die in this Snorri epic, you go to Valhalla." No, you don't. It's an actual fucking place. Like Eve, she was rescued thence by her husband, who descended into hell. But on the way back with her, he is made to lose her. Of course, because who's retelling the story? Who wants to punish the people who beat them and fucking broke up their little party of abusing, torturing, murdering, and sacrificing and poisoning people? They've hated us ever since Thor 5,000 years ago. In the graceful Greek myth, Eurydice is then lost forever, and Orpheus abandons himself to despair. With his hollow lyre, allays the pain of love and walking lonely on the shore. When morning rises or when evening falls, he mourns in music, sweet Eurydice. And with his dying breath, Eurydice, alas Eurydice, will call till all the river banks re-echo with her name, and weep and mourn for lost Eurydice. British Arthurian version as Lancelot and Guinevere. And these idiots continue to make good people out of these pieces of shit who were awful garbage child killers in real life. And they keep on glorifying them. Because who's infecting all the cultures? You guessed it. Who's infecting our culture? Oy vey! In the later British versions of the Arthurian legend, wherein Balder, under the title of Lancelot, a name presumably coined as we have seen from his Eddic title as the Lance Bearer, is exalted into a knight of King Arthur's Round Table in series with the Teutonic exaltation of him into one of King Thor's court of Asas. Asas are lords. Think of them as not really senators, more like mayors or governors of a territory. But even these later British bards, nevertheless, with evidently some glimmering of his real truculent and vicious character, have to make him a libertine, consorting illicitly with Queen Elaine, i.e. the Eddic Helena title of his mother paramour El, and also philandering with Arthur's queen Guinevere, i.e. Eve, and his libertinism is apparent in Tennyson's Idylls, even when glossed over with early Victorian prudery. Okay, pausing here to just go around the room real quick, and then we'll come back to it. Let's just do this so it's easier. Drop that down. All right, starting with Karen. Tyranny number 1, what's up? And let's see, Archangel's in the house too. Good to see you. All right, cool. Let me jump up to this guy. Blank. Hey, wow, they actually, when I changed the information this time, it actually popped up. That's great. Good times. Yeah. All right. Chickadee chat. I gotta drop my standard hello in here. It's probably a little late for most people on this side. And this is FTJ Media. Let's see. No Thomas Dwyer. We got it. Oh, hey, there's vocational. Yeah, man. Cool. You make sure your copy is the one that's 452 pages, because I've seen it in different like formats, I guess, but they would say like one of three or one, so I guess they broke it up into 3 different parts as well. All right. Aloha. Hey, Edward Snowman. How are you, sir? All right, cool. People are in the house. I'm good to see it. We'll get back into it in just a moment. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Let's kick it. Oh, geez. Hey, look, everybody. It's clavicular.
Well, let me make sure we're actually like right here so that we're at the...
All right, wow, we have 2 people. No, hey, I trucked your blah, blah, blah. Okay, thanks for the bot. All right, well, that's cool. We got some people over here on Kick. It's a couple. Let's see. There's a party somewhere. The party's not on party, I can tell you that. Let's see. I'm going to shut these all down in just a second. Yeah. Let's see. Right, yeah, that's cool. So they're all working. That's all I was really looking at. Let's see how we're doing over here. Yep. Everything's good over on this side on the Patreon. Excellent. Now, let's see. I have yet to look at this. Let's see if it's actually working. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I'm here. Bill the Butcher. Thank you. All right. So guys, don't get mad if I don't look at the chats a lot this time, because I'm going to be trying to plow through this reading. So let's get into it. Yeah, the main, for everybody who doesn't know this channel, the main one is on Rumble. What did I do? I hit the... Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay. Number 21. Scene 21, and they're going into further detail in the appendices here. King Thor's crusade against Eden in Sumerian and Indian versions, with miraculous passage over water as dry land. Sumerian version of Adam's fiery cross as a crusade. The Sumerian hymns contain many references to King Adar, or Adam, or Thor, carrying the wood torch symbol of the sun. Remember, we're the sun venerators. And the sun emblem. What is a sun wheel? What is a swastika but a sun wheel? That was our symbol. And the sun emblem in his hand in the invincible expeditions of conquest. Thus, O Lord Adar, who liftest up the torch, who pursuest swiftly the foe, in the right hand of the king, the shepherd of this country, may the emblem of the sun god be carried. Indian version of Adam's miraculous passage over water as dry land. Oh, look. Hey, Moses wasn't even original, everybody. Even if it was completely concocted out of whole cloth bullshit, it wasn't even... They can't even... Remember, I told you, these people don't create. They can't create. All they can do is suck life out of things. They can't create. They can co-opt. They can get other people to build stuff for them and then take credit for it. They can steal other people and plagiarize them quite well. But the ideas, not really big on those. Hatred, yeah. Spitefulness, sure. Vindictive, diabolical behavior, of course. Rapacious attitude, oh, yeah. They'll fuck at anything that moves and then rip its face off. But can they create anything? Can they point to any time in their history where they actually did something good that was even worth writing about? Did they even have a history, or did they steal ours? The rescue of Eve forms the next scene. Here it is noteworthy that a memory of Adam Burmiot's miraculous passage over water as dry land, which was borrowed by the later Hebrews for Moses. Da-da-da. Moses' passage of the Red Sea is preserved in the ancient Indian epics, which state that to the mighty Perthu, which is Burmioth or Prometheus' name for Adam Thor, the first Aryan king, the waters became solid when he traversed the ocean. The mountains opened him a path. His banner passed unbroken through the forest. Okay. So, nothing about them. is original, but this also would indicate that these idiots who gave the Semites a Greek education in Alexandria means that they had access to their histories in the Alexandrian library, and out of pure spite, resentment, and hatred, certainly not gratitude or appreciation for having been given an education, but more or less spiteful hatred for having had to have someone help them along, because that's how they roll. They decided to concoct a story that we now call the Old Testament or the Tanakh, and they utilized Gothic Aryan people and Semitized them in their retellings. So a lot of the accolades, some of their attitudes would be inverted to suit their cult, their moon cult of human sacrifices perspective of things. But where are they getting all this information from? Mostly it's from this Edda story that was preserved and well known for thousands upon thousands of years before they put the lights out on it. All right, so 22. Adam's and remember, Jesus and good old Thor. We don't really need the other guy if we have the one guy, but it's okay. Adam's rescue of abducted Eve from Eden in Sumerian and Hittite versions. Sumerian, Babylonian, and Hittite versions of Adam's rescue of Eve. The ancient sacred seals of the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Hittites represent this famous scene freely. Dr. Ward, in his classic work, figures over a score of other such seals. These are seals that they found when they were doing excavations. In addition to that, here figured from the earliest period down to the late Babylonian and Syrian, and significantly, their details are all in accordance with the traditional record preserved in this Edda, the way it is supposed to be read, not the way Sturluson screwed it all up, and not the way the guy's name was the learned Sigmund, who collected the Edda fragments and saved them from being destroyed by the Christians, who were going on a kill crazy rampage and also destroying all pre-Christian doctrines. So luckily, we still have a shred of our history. So sorry if I'm not a Christian, but the Christians tried to destroy your ancestral past. So yeah, I hold a grudge. And if anything, if there was a Jesus, he came from our people anyway. He came from us, not for us. He had a mission, and it wasn't us. We weren't the ones fucking up. Capture of Eden, Magic Bowl, or Holy Grail by King Thor, Dar, Erthor, or Arthur in Sumerian version, and recovery of the Holy Grail. Sumerian version of Adam's capture of the Eden Bowl, or Holy Grail. The capture of the sacred stone bowl of Eden by King Dar the Asa is frequently referred to in the ancient Sumerian hymns as the Sumerians we have found were the early Aryans or Goths. The Sumerians were the early Aryans or Goths, and its loss is laterally lamented by the later Sumerians, Akkads, Babylonians, and Hittites down through the ages, just as its loss and quest are common themes in British legend of King Arthur. These Sumerian hymns were written after the idea of God and the universal God of heaven, an idea first imagined by the Gentile Goth Adam Thor. The concept of a benevolent creator, a single monotheistic benevolent creator, was initially Adam's or Thor's, or maybe his father or his grandfather, but from his lineage. Are we catching this? This is not a Semitic or a Jewish or whatever the fuck. They stole that from us. They were busy conjuring demons, and many of them, and killing children, and they still do the same shit. All they do is lie. It's pseudo monotheism they have the audacity to call everybody else idol worshippers. Fuck these people. Had become developed in the post-Adamite period by the later Sumerians, who created their image of God in the image of man as a king and father. Now, I want to just reiterate this too, because I've said this before. They say God created man in his image. Wrong. Because God never talked to people. Okay? When anybody was talking to God, they were talking to an actual guy that they deified after the fact. Thor being a real person, it went the other direction. They created their image of God in the image of man. Not the other way around where God created man in his image. Wrong. So if they created God in the image of Thor, then what's that tell you? And the man in whose image they created that of their God was Adam himself, Thor, as the greatest man and Superman of the world had known. They also gave God Adam's names and titles of Ea, Jah, or Indara, Zach, or Zeus, the Sig and Ig titles of Adam in the Edda, whilst Adam himself they called the Son of God, a title which he also bears in the New Testament. Bong! Who's the Son of God? What was the template for Jesus? Hey man, if you want to keep him around, you don't have to throw him out. All I'm saying is, even if he was a real guy, you know that these people's fingers have been in this book and in the retellings of words that they put in his mouth for the last 2,000 years. And it's kind of curious to me that it took them 100 years to start writing about the guy. So I think they made a collage of a bunch of different Aryan characteristics of people that they hated, squeezed them all together into Jesus, and then killed him because they couldn't kill Thor in real life, so they have to do it in writing like they did with Prometheus. Prometheus even gets pecked out at his ribs by his liver, right? Constantly, eternally. What did they do to Jesus after he's dangling there on the cross? Give him a poke right in the same area with a spear. I'm just saying, what came first? One of these fine ancient Sumerian hymns sings in strict series with the Gothic Edda. The strong Daru hero before whom the foe exists not. In their midst, like a great wild bull, has he, Adar, which is Thor, lifted up his horns. The Bur, or Urbul stone, the precious stone, the serpent stone, the mountain stone, the warrior, the fire stone, the hero has carried to his city. He stole the enchantment bowl from these wizards and weirds that was supposed to be the source of their power and spell casting over the people. He cracks it and then he steals it from them so they can't have this in their possession anymore. Modern recovery of the missing Garden of Eden bowl or Holy Grail of King Arthur. So this is an enchantment bowl. What do they call this thing? A conjuring bowl, perhaps? I don't know. Maybe it's a piece of tech. The historicity of the Edda accounts of this famous magic bowl of the Garden of Eden or the Holy Grail of King Arthur, while confirming by the foregoing and other Sumerian hymns, is further strikingly established, and the cracking of the bowl confirmed by the modern recovery of the actual bowl itself. In the excavations at the oldest Sun Temple in Mesopotamia at Nippur, by the University of Pennsylvania, deep down below the foundations of the Great Central Tower, which I have personally visited and seen the hole where the bowl was extracted, was unearthed the chief portion of this stone bowl. The votive inscription cut upon it is in the oldest form of Sumerian writing yet known, and records that records that the bowl was deposited there by the priest king Udog of Kish as a votive offering, and was a trophy captured at Hamasi city, i.e. the old name for Karshemish or Gargamesh, like Gargamel, or the fort of Gamish, or Himi's Guard, which means Himi's lair, Garden of Himi's of the Edda, where Himi is the title of the matriarch El of the bowl. That's the sorceress. And we have found that Karshemish was the site of the Garden of Eden in Turkey by the Euphrates. Sunken lowland between two rivers that was actually referred to as Hell in the Edda. That was the name of it. It was like a common name for Eden because of these demons that it was called Hell. Himin, Himin, was the Hittite word for heaven. So when people were casting the serpent out of heaven, these were the serpent cult people. Woden comes to the banquet hall of like the citadel area of Thor and his son Cain throws him out. So he's casting the serpent out of heaven. Ugh. Demystified. Put into terrestrial terms. Not hocus pocus superstitious bullshit. In the inscription, King Udug also records that he was the son of Genigi, or Enoch, son of Cain. Enoch is the son of Cain, who was the son of Bazuzu, Cain, who is the son of... And Cain is the son of Zach, or Thor. Nippur, as the site selected for burying the famous Holy Grail of Adam, is now seen to be owing to that sun temple and city having been his especial favorite, as recorded in early Sumerian hymns. Thus, one of these early hymns sings, "O Lord Thor," or Adar, or Adam, Adar, "in thy city which thou lovest, may thy heart be at rest. In the temple of Nippur, thy city which thou lovest, may thy heart be at rest." Hey, but guys, I'm just saying, if there was no original sin, then no dude need to die for your sins either. And it's like saying, can you take a shit for me? No, there's some things you need to do for yourself. Nobody can die for yourself. What are we doing? If we find it repulsive that these freaks swing a chicken around their head 3 times, why are you swinging Jesus around your head 3 times to atone for your sins? Man up and do the work. But again, as far as original sin, the human nature, this has been applied to us. It's this sick fucking cult of wickedness that infects humans. It's their nature, not ours. It wasn't ours. And since there's no original sin necessary because Adam and Eve were destroying a wicked cult and not defying God in the garden, they were defying these demon fucking pieces of shit who are, torturing human beings. And Eve, having been a vestal of them, her big crime was leaving that cult and getting baptized. Oh, by the way, baptism was originated by our people too. Introduced into civilization by our people, not those people. They didn't do that. We did. Into the sun religion she went, being baptized, and then became the wife of Adam, or Thor. The deep bearing of this actual bull... Oh, sorry, hold on. His holy grail of Thor, or Arthur, was thus deposited in the city where his heart was at rest. This deep bearing of this actual bull, handled by Adam, Eve, El, and Abel by King Udug, the great-grandson of King Thor, or Arthur, over 5,000 years ago, now explains why the Holy Grail had totally disappeared, because he buried it, and was made the subject of lamentations down the ages in Babylonia, and of quests by the early British. The broken state of this trophy bowl, which has perplexed Assyriologists, is also now explained. This bowl is the oldest personal, authentic, and inscribed relic of the early world known. The conjectural dates for inscribed records previous to this are purely fanciful. The bowl, or rather its chief inscribed portion, which is now in my possession, is the subject of a separate monograph. Battle of Eden and capture of that place by King Dar, Thor, or Adam in Sumerian and Babylonian versions. So why are we going in through all these different cultures and civilizations and their versions of the same story? Well, isn't it kind of interesting that all these civilizations are telling the same story with slightly different names? Doesn't that kind of prove that this story was well-traveled, even, contemporary to the time that it occurred? And why was it so important that it was continually reminded of, or, retold and etched into stone and preserved for thousands upon thousands of years? Why? Because it was important. And also it indicates that the people who seeded the culture in all these different territories, Egypt, Persia, Babylon, or Sumer, everywhere, Cappadocia, even Troy, Anywhere that there was a civilization, Indus Valley, where you get the Vedas and the Mahabharata, they're all telling the same story because our people are the first, we're the ones who actually created civilization there. We were always the minority because we were coming into territories that weren't ours, but we were always welcomed and loved by the people there because we benefited them with our higher society, innovation, progress, safety, guardianship, protection. People could go about their lives. Their children could go freaking playing outside without having to worry about being picked up by some psychopath who was going to, rape and murder them. We can't even say that now. So it's pretty interesting that if there's anybody who wants to argue that the British Edda, well, it was found in Iceland, and because the guy who was fleeing was picking the stuff up, and that's where he moved to farm to stay away from the Christians as long as he could, and then they showed up there too. But luckily, it was preserved. And they're like, well, this is the British. Well, yeah, yeah, in a sense, because that's where they started writing it down. But it's all over the walls. It's all over the seals. It's 5,000 years worth of history of the same story being told. And isn't it funny how they all line up to the Edda? And then the Anglo-Saxons, which is kind of a strange, not real word, but the ancient Britons. They were well aware of the story, and that's where the Edda comes from. And those were Gothic Aryan people originally too. All right, so Battle of Eden and capture of that place by King Thor, or Adam in Sumerian, and Babylonian versions. In the Sumerian and Babylonian hymns are numerous references to this epoch-making battle, but all date to the period when Cain, remember Adam and Cain is Adam's son. They made him to be the bad guy. Abel was the child-sacrificing son of a bitch who was giving the blood offerings, right? Yeah. And he was supposedly favored by their demons, not by a god, because there was no god in the picture. El is the matriarch. El is the sorceress. They still have a matriarchal cult, don't they? Whose lineage do they trace to find out if you're an Oive? They find out you're a Jew. They go through the mother, right? Okay. Adam, Cain, El, and Abel had been deified by the myth-mongering priests. Yeah. They said they all date to a period when all these people were already deified by the myth-mongering priests. And who's responsible for that? The moon cult. These people, the sons of bitches. The battle is usually called the Fight of Bel and the Dragon. Now, Bel and Baal are not the same. Okay, just keep that in mind. Bel and Baal are not the same. Baal is Cain. I'm sorry, Baal is Abel. Baal is Lucifer. Yeah, but that's not true. Okay, well, the guy that it's all based off of is all those things. So yeah, it is. Moloch is just a type of sacrifice, the immolation or burning of a child. And typically the priest is also eating it afterward. It's disgusting. But Baal, he's called the Raging Bull a bunch of times and shit like that in here. And so when you do a totem of a person, you get all these depictions of these weird hieroglyphs. So it's like, hey, why does that guy have a lion head and blah, blah, blah. It's because back in the day, they had a totem animal for their cults. So this serpent cult was mixing around with snake venom to make poisons and what Ammon Hillman on Lady Babylon describes, he's a philologist, as the burning purple. So they were doing this 5,000 years ago. Like I said, she is the El is the inspiration for Medea. So she is doing this, and then the Amazonians around her are using poison-tipped darts, or they're putting it in their hair and they're striking it through their hair before they throw these darts. So that's where the Rowan apple tree of Thor also comes into play, because it was a wound washer in the event that you got nicked or hit with one of these poison spears, poison darts, poison arrows. Okay, moving on. It is interesting to find that the old matriarch El, who is called Elu, and by the way, go back to Masking Hole, Elu Limnu, the most disgustingly, wickedly evil gods of the Babylonian magic. Elu. She inspired that. And she's also Tiamat in their retellings of the story. And she's Lilith, who is called Elu, also the dragon of evil, is also called in the Babylonian Mother Huber. You know where this is coming, right? Thus disclosing the Edenite origin of Old Mother Hubbard of the British nursery tales, imported evidently by the Phoenicians, who was distressed at not finding a bone to feed her dog, i.e. the wolf, because this is the serpent wolf cult. The dog being the domesticated wolf, and we have seen the Edda describe El as feeding her son Balder or Abel as the wolf of Fen or Van. She is also called in the Babylonian accounts Tiamat, which seems to be the Semitic feminine form of Tai, or Tiva, which is her son. Thus, and strictly analogous to her title in the Indian Vedas of Taya, as the paramour of Tayo. And remember, she's also popping out as Kali. She's the inspiration for Kali. Her hordes collected to fight against heaven and Bel, or the Lord, are thus described in a late Babylonian text. They cursed the day and went forth by the side of Tiamat. They raged, they plotted, not resting day or night. They raised a conflict, they chafed, they fumed, they set themselves in battle array and made contests. It is significant that Bel, i.e. the Eddic Bill title of Thor, in going to meet the host Mother Huber, grasped in his hand the plant annihilating poison, which we have found was the rowan apple tree. What did I just say? In the older Sumerian and Babylonian hymns are the following. She kept on trying to get Eve to give him wine or ale with snake venom in it to kill him. She kept on trying to convince. It's like, man, these people and their poisoning of wells and all kinds of shit, man. It's got a very deep, long history, doesn't it? The treachery. Like even the Jesuits. Holy shit! If I don't know what they would do without poisoning people, or the CIA, or anybody else who whacks people softly. Silent murders. I've freaking poisoning their fucking toothpaste and all kinds of shit. So it would make very good sense for him to have a plant annihilating, the plant that annihilates the poison. In the older Sumerian and Babylonian hymns, we are the following amongst other references to this battle. Adar is Adam or Thor. The destroyer of the fortress of the hostile land descends like the deluge. Ah. Okay, so this is going to get a little funny when you realize that the flood was actually a flood of these wolf tribe assholes that were in alliance or subjugated to the sorcerer class of this serpent wolf cult. And they all were gathered to fight the Goths and rid themselves of the reign of reason. Yeah. Thou art the warrior of the mountain who subjugated. And then it says, they couldn't read that part. Thou destroyest the life of the evil one. May thy heart be exalted. In the slaughter of the weapon, the warrior whom thou slayest is utterly destroyed. The slaying of Balder or Abel by the young prince Cain in a duel. So Abel is killed by Cain in a duel. And of the old dragon priestess, the matriarch herself, by King Thor, is described in a later scene of the Edda. The slaying of Balder or Abel by Prince Cain in Babylonian, Phoenician, Egyptian, Indian, Greek, Old and New Testament. Gee, this might have been an important event. Ancient Britain, Welsh, Irish, and Arthurian versions. And what's important about the Babylonian, Phoenician, Egyptian, Indian, and Greek is they're kind of sort of like pretty close to like maybe not the Greek, maybe that came a little bit later, but very close proximity of time chronologically. And why are all these other territories talking about this if not for the fact that the same people established that civilization there? We were the single source of establishing all civilization. We go someplace, we built it up. These pieces of shit that still hate us from this event come in, erode it from within, rot it from the inside, destroy it. All they can do is suck life out of things. They can't build their own stuff. So they follow us everywhere we go and destroy what we build. This is what they do. This is what a parasite does. Sumerian, Babylonian, and Phoenician versions of the slaying of Abel by Cain. This great achievement of Cain in ridding the early world of its riotous scourge, who blocked the way to the higher civilization introduced by Adam and Cain, naturally led to Cain being immortalized as a hero by grateful humanity in all the civilized nations down through the ages. We were loved. We were loved everywhere we went. We were like the small mustached guy, right? Except this dude had more muscles. Thus, the Sumerians and Babylonians who laterally deified Cain under most of his Eddic titles, including Gan or Khan, represent him under his title of the Sun Duke or Marduk. And remember, yes, everything gets poisoned by this cult after the fact, and everything that was once established, originated, or originally a story about us, they've poisoned and turned into another place to introduce child or human sacrifice into it, so that when we look back at it, we don't even want to look at it. It's repulsive, right? We don't want to look at our own history because we don't realize that it's been poisoned by them. It's like that didn't start off that way. Osiris and the whole story and this thing wasn't always something that the Freemasons destroyed and corrupted and made ugly. It used to be our story. Osiris was Thor. Horus was Cain. Just telling the same story in a different place. But look what these fucking people do. They come into they just like a freaking virus, which doesn't exist, but just like a parasite, and they just make everything ugly. They make everything like them. It's like they don't need to change. They don't even need to change the words. They just make everything like their cult. So they don't care what you call it. It's not about giving it the proper names. Judaism plays that game. Like, oh, you're an idol worshiper, you don't do this and that and the other thing, and, Hashem and blah, 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 and, just no hide nonsense. These are just excuses to kill people. That's got nothing to do with, like, them giving a shit, because they don't honestly believe in any of this stuff. They didn't have a god. They conjure demons and still do, or think that they are. They're still fucking around magic, and they're still harming children and still murdering people and torturing them. Same as it ever was. And that's why in this book, it's very clear that there's a modus operandi and there's a pattern to recognize throughout history where you can it's better than a fucking fingerprint where they've been and because of the trail of shit that goes with them. And rather than try to change the established religions or beliefs, they just poison them and alter them so that now they become self-destructive to those who believe in it. Prometheus becomes they take Zeus, who's actually the true the representation of Thor, and they turn him into Balder, which is Satan. Basically, he's Lucifer. He's like the living personification of all that's evil. And then they basically transfer what Zeus or Thor is into Prometheus. And what do they do in the stories when they start getting a hold of the mythology? Which when you realize that it wasn't mythology until they got their hands on it. They have him tortured for eternity, chained against a rock in Scythia, and having buzzards pick at his freaking his liver for going against the gods and stealing the fire from the gods to give to man. How is that not expressive of Thor bringing innovation and agriculture and fairness, justice, laws, reign of reason to the people in the territory that these demons claimed for themselves to torture and sacrifice people? It wasn't going against the gods, it was going against them, their demonic little cult. Where were we? As chief warrior archangel of his father Indra, whom they have also deified as their father god, and celebrated this episode as his slaying the dragon of destruction, a favorite theme in their hymns, and frequently engraved pictorially on their sacred seals, in which Abel is sometimes represented as a lion. And remember, the Phrygians are the lion-faced people, so whenever you see like pictures of a lion in a headlock and they try to tell you that's Gilgamesh, well, yeah, okay. It could also just be Thor, and showing his dominance. He's either tamed them because he annexed them, so maybe it's not being attacking him. And when you show dominance, you usually make one thing bigger than the other. So it's just another way of depicting it when you're doing a drawing. It doesn't necessarily mean that Gilgamesh was 100 feet tall or whatever in comparison to the lion. And when you see him in headlock, is he really that? It was a lion, or is it the Phrygians, and showing that he's tamed them or annexed them and rehabilitated them because they were being a problem? All right. Because Phrygia is the land of lions. It's actually the name. It means fierce. Deified as their father god, and celebrated this episode as a slaying of the dragon. And celebrated this episode as his slaying the dragon of destruction, a favorite theme in their hymns and frequently engraved in... Okay, we already said that. That's a lion. And later Phoenicians, calling him Miklu or Mikal, celebrated him on their coins and monuments, and the ancient Britons on their monuments. Britons. And significantly at Karshemish, or the old Eden itself, as now discovered for the first time, most of the massive archaic sculptures picture the slaying of Abel or Balder as the lion steer of Eden. And the long inscriptions in hieroglyphs, I find, votive records of various kings regarding Adam Thor's victory at that old shrine, and wailings for the lost wailings. You know, where they dry hump for Shekinah? Where do you think? You want to know where the source of that is? They lost their matriarch and the son of the matriarch, Balder. Dry hump. Yeah, it's like jerking off and crying or something. Thor's victory at the old shrine, and wailings for the lost magic bowl of Eve or Eden. But the magic bowl of Eve, like hers, of Eden. Egyptian version. The ancient Egyptians, deriving, as we have found, their civilization and letters from the Sumerians or early Aryans, also celebrated this event in their hymns and litanies as the killing of the wolf-headed Seth or Set, the demon of destruction, by young Horus of the sun cult, the sun hawk warrior, son of Asar or Osiris. So here's what this just goes to show how many fucking retards are out there that make videos. Okay, I always thought Osiris was the Egyptian version of the story name. Osiris is apparently the Greek way of saying that name. How many times have you ever heard anybody make that distinction? When they always talk about Osiris and Horus and shit like that, they don't ever say that it's Asar. They say it's Osiris. And bullshit that some asshole by the name of Aleister Crowley was contacting Horus through the channeling of his bitch in the Great Pyramid, and that Horus was saying all this horrible shit. Horus is Cain. It's a son of Thor. Whatever that thing was if it was anything at all and not just a bunch of bullshit, like why would they talk to a guy like Crowley anyway? Who's, if you want to talk about a freaking Epstein type character, he was one of the originals. I'm not sure if he ate them, but I know he killed them, children. The demon of destruction by young Horus of the sun called the sun hawk. Remember, all these things have been made ugly. The all-seeing eye, or the hawk eye, or the eye of Horus used to be a symbol of relief. It meant that you're being watched over, like you're being protected. You're being guarded. And it didn't turn into surveillance and like we're watching you and you can't get anything past us until this element corrupts your society. This isn't our people. This isn't our nature. What we see around us is the direct result of this cult, this mentality, this fucking oy vey element to everything. And as far back as this cult, it wasn't just them. It wasn't just Semitic or Ashkenazi Turk. It was there were Germanic people in there. There were Gothic people. So when people say it's just one ethnicity, well, the Freemasonic orders would show that there's other people involved who aren't them, but are working on their behalf. And we don't know how far back those bloodlines go. They could go as far back as Sumer. It could go as far back as Rome. Oh, and incidentally, I think we passed it last time, but Rome's, ROMS, is another name for the Edenites, this cult. Gee, maybe that's why they were so subordinate to the Sanhedrin, which I guess would be considered like the wizard class of that cult again. The Sunhawk warrior, son of Asar or Osiris or Atmu, whom I have shown to be the deified King Adam or Thor, they represented the event also pictorially on their sculptures, etc., as the hawk-headed young Horus spearing Set as the crocodile, because a reptile, right? We got a serpent cult we're dealing with, which reptile was an Egyptian form of the dragon. And in later Egyptian art, Hiru or Horus is represented on horseback in spearing Set or Seth, the dragon, like the modern style of Saint Michael and the dragon. Saint Michael is Cain. Isn't that nice? It's funny when you say Michael and Cain, though, because then you think of the actor. All right. Indian version. Right. Because what happened when the Assyrians... Oh, yeah, if you want to know the history of why were our people... Why was there a second wave of our people? Like, we had already established some stuff in the Indus Valley. We had already had a kingdom there, but there was a huge influx of our people fleeing the territory of Babylon when this old moon cult decided to do what they do and let your enemies in the gates type of deal, like they did with the Visigoths in Iberia. Well, these guys let the Assyrians in, and they were part of the same type of fucked up cult. So what did they do? They tried to hunt us into extinction. And they were chopping off parts of our faces, bodies, tongues, eyeballs gouged out. I can't remember if it was Ashurnazarpal or Ashurbanipal, but it's in here. You'll be able to see which one it was, because one was decent and one was not. And yeah, they would pin us to the ground and skin us alive, man, woman, and child. Stacks of skin. They would flay us and put our skin over piles of our skulls. Yeah, they really got into their work. They really enjoyed their work, right? And they were trying to eradicate us from the planet. Sound familiar? So a big wave of us then go into the Indus Valley, and a lot of our histories, like the most important thing to our people was our histories, and we took them with us, besides our families, of course. Very Scythian of us to be very family and tribal oriented, or nation nationalist. The Indian epic version represents Cain as the most popular of all the demigods under the title of Thor. I'm sorry, Lord Gan is Ganesh, which is funny because Ganesh is like the elephant. So Cain is represented as Ganesh, the elephant, because a great bull, apparently elephant, I guess in different languages, doesn't have a distinction. So we say elephant, but they might not have the same word for it. So it's kind of funny, right? Yeah. And then we look back and be like, what are these fucking morons that are worshiping an elephant-headed dude? It's like, no, it's actually Cain. Lord Gan, the god of grain and wealth. And why is that? And the remover of obstacles. And relates that... Okay, so later on, earlier, we found out that Cain was quite the blacksmith and metal worker. And apart from making weapons, he made plows. sturdy, strong plows for tilling fields for agriculture. So that's why they probably call him the god of grain and wealth, and also the remover of obstacles, because when you're tilling, it's like, you know what I mean? You get what I mean? And relates that he defended his mother's honor against the great devil Tiva, the bull. Right. So there you go again. You're getting Balder, Baal, the bull, all together there. A title of Balder in the Edda. The Vedas represent Val or Balder as the demonist lord Valda or Pani in the Vedas. Balder as the wolf of Van or Fen, the stealer of Indra's cows, cow being a Vedic title also for women, who was killed. Woman, cow, you know, what's the difference? You give cows as a dowry anyway, right? I'll give you a couple cows for one of your cows. That's my daughter you're talking about. Whatever, you know. Who was killed and his forts destroyed by Indra himself. The incident was deemed so important that it is repeated about 24 times in those Vedic hymns. Greco-Roman version. The later Greco-Romans represent this incident in their sculptures as the young Cain under the title of Mithra, naming him after his father, Mitra. Right? We have to stop hating Mithra and Mithraism and the sun cult. That's what they did to our brains. Okay? Mitra, who are we talking about? Cain. What did Cain do? He slew Abel, but he slew the bull. He slew Baal. He slew the fucking, what they consider Loki or Lucifer. And that's what you're seeing on that, the guy with the Phrygian cap on, with the cape, and he's stabbing the bull. Do you want me to putting up the picture? I'll do it. Mitra. Any picture of Mitra, you'll see. What's up, old reliable? Let's see. Let's go like this. Should we just go to images first? Yeah. There you go. Like, it's the first thing that pops up usually. So let's see if I can open it up in a. It's gonna be bigger. Yeah. See, there you go. So that's your Cain from the Cain and Abel story. That's your Abel right there, the son of a bitch, and that's the bull. And you notice the wolf and the serpent, because it's a serpent wolf cult. Pretty cool. And don't tell me that guy does. Don't tell me this dude doesn't look of the Gothic Aryan fair type to you. That dude's not European. Come on. They're like, oh, this is a Persian religion. Yeah, but who established the fucking culture there and the civilization? It wasn't a bunch of, whatever the hell they call those people over there. I don't even know. Oh, man. It's another good one. It's got a nicer background, so it sticks out. All right, let's go to it. Am I still on the right thing? Yeah, I am. Cool. All right. The later Greco-Romans represent this incident, we already said. Mithra, naming after his father, Mithra slaying the bull of hell, who is attended by the serpent, wolf, and scorpion, which you see underneath, like, snapping the balls of the bull. Just as the later Babylonians transferred Bel or Indara's exploits to his deified son, Marduk. The young Prince Cain. Oh, by the way, the names like Earl and Duke are like thousands of years old. They were first used by the Gothic Aryan people, and that transferred over into what you think is British and stuff like that. The young Prince Cain wears the tall Phrygian cap as on the Hittite sculptures, and Raging Bull was the title of Balder Loki, as we have seen. See, I wasn't making that up. Several of these famous sculptures of the Roman period have been found in London and other parts of Britain. Old Testament bullshit version, the Semitic perversion, his words. This is Elie Waddell, Lawrence Austin Waddell. When was this book published? I think 1930 or 1929. And we're going to get into Makers of Civilization and Race and History, which was the book that came out prior to this. He took 20 years to finish this one because newer information came in and more proofs to validate his suspicions came about in an excavation, and he finally said, okay, this is definitely what I thought it was, and sent it through. But yeah, the makers of civilization and race and history. This guy's an archaeologist and a philologist. So that thing that Ammon Hillman, is kind of a like he's really good at, like, I guess, ancient Greek, but still gets some things wrong. I don't think it was 100% right. Not that I would know any better, but from my understanding of people who do know this stuff, like I don't read ancient Greek just yet. Working on it. Anyway, the Semitic perversion in Genesis makes Cain the brother and elder brother of Abel and the firstborn of the human race, who became so wroth by the Hebrew tribal god El. Who's El? It's a female, and its El is Saturn, by the way. This was the old Saturn cult. The Edenites in Eden were the Saturn moon cult. Anytime you see a moon cult or a Saturn cult, there's human child sacrifice. So again, remember, Woden and El made Abel. No relation whatsoever to Cain, who was the product of Adam and Eve. Or Adam and Guinevere, if you want to go that far. If you want to call it Thor and Gunnefer, you can say that too. But you get the point. They're not related. So, of course, they have to graft themselves onto something. And apparently, so if everybody in the world was first their people, then shouldn't everybody on the planet be fucking Semitic? Shouldn't everybody, or whatever the fuck they're pretending to be, shouldn't everybody be a Jew? But they're not. Funny enough, their origin story is based off a bunch of fucking Aryans. How funny is that? I would be so inclined as to rub that in their faces any chance I got. Do you know that all the people that you talk about in the Bible that you pretend are this, that, and the other thing are actually Gothic Aryans? Anyway. All right, so we said, who became so wroth by the Hebrew tribal god El of Eden, having not respect to the simple offerings of the fruits of the ground, but having accepted the animal sacrifices of Abel, that it made Cain mad. Right, because remember, the Old Testament is told from the perspective of the child-killing cult. So they're not going to tell you that they're a bunch of pieces of shit and they got hit with the heavy hand of justice and they never learned their lesson. No, they're going to tell you that everything that our people did was terrible without saying directly who they were, and that Abel was favored by God, favored by their demons, sure, on their side of the fence over in Karshemish, over in Eden, but sure as hell not favored by any benevolent creator who would have seen what they were doing to animals and children and been repulsed by that. And it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. See what they do to our brains? Do you see what they do to our brains at such a young age? So many people are going to have a problem with this, and there's nothing to have a problem with. You don't have any skin in this game. They're not you know what I mean? You have more skin in the game to get it right, because now you realize these are your own ancestors that they're talking about, not some fucking detached bullshit. Their religion is a spell. It's a grimoire. It's the magic of Gander working upon you. Thereupon the Hebrew deity cursed Cain, allegedly, for bringing the first death into the world. A world created according to that story only a few years before the birth of Cain, and only by totaling up the ages specified there 5,688 years ago, or in 3761 BC. Yeah. Yet, as remarked by biblical critics, that curse was of so little effect that it is admitted that Cain was the builder of the first city, the city of Enoch, or Erech, a city named after his son Enoch, and actually recorded in the Sumerian and Babylonian documents still existing as having been built by Cain. And thus he was also on Semitic evidence a great and flourishing king. Yeah, that must have pissed them off a little, huh? A New Testament version. Okay, this whilst retailing the Old Testament, the Old Hebrew version with the righteousness of Abel bullshit and the wickedness of Cain. So listen to me. If your own Bible in the New Testament is telling you that the most wickedly evil fucking piece of shit that ever walked the earth is righteous, and the guy who put an end to him is wicked, what does that say about your judicial system? What does that say about your religion? If it's all based on fucking lies, throw the shit out. You don't need to be led by your fucking nose by these people. You want your Jesus? Great. You want any of this extra bullshit? It's not necessary. It's the Jews doing Jew shit, lying liars who lie. Or lying liars who infect the minds of other people who will be sympathetic and tell the story the way the Jews want them to. That way they keep their name out of it. Okay, so the wickedness of Cain, nevertheless, rightly glorifies Cain under his title of Michael the Archangel as the deliverer of heaven from Satan or Lucifer. That's when he kicked out Woden. Or, well, he actually did it twice. He knocked out Woden, and Balder did the same thing. But yeah, they both came up to the end and got kicked out. It is also significant that in the Revelation, Satan, as the king of hell, who was overcome by Saint Michael, is called Apollyon, a name translated as the destroyer, i.e., the actual literal meaning of the Sumerian Baal title of Balder Loki, or Abel in the Sumerian. Moreover, Abel is the judge of hell in the ancient sacred book of the early Christian fathers entitled the Testament of Abraham. In this combat between Saint Michael and Apollyon in art, Cain as Saint Michael is represented as a handsome youth of Aryan type, as opposed to Apollyon, an elderly Mephistopheles. Oh man, that's awesome. I used to know a what do you call it? What do you want to call it? A satanic ska band named Mephistopheles? It was Scophles instead of Mephistopheles. An elderly Mephistopheles of non-Aryan physical type. This title of Apollyon, or the Destroyer, was popularized by Bunyan in his Pilgrim's Progress as a name of Satan or Lucifer, and the Pilgrim Christian credits Michael for deliverance from him, and he with rage that hellish was did fiercely me engage, but blessed Michael helped me. Ancient Britain's version. Apart from the literary version preserved in the Edda, the ancient monuments and pre-Roman coins of the Britons contain numerous representatives of Cain as Tassio or Saint Michael overcoming the wolf, remember the wolf, serpent wolf cult, as the foe of the goats. Goats was the totem animal for the Goths and the deer. Goats and deer, as in the Phoenician coins and seals. Welsh and Irish versions. A memory of this achievement of Cain seems preserved in the Welsh triads, which say, a resurrection for Brythons was made by Gawain. And it was by, Prince Cain or Gawain as St. Michael. And it was by the command of St. Michael the Victor that St. Patrick the Scot was sent to Ireland to expel the snakes, serpent cult, from that isle. Arthurian legend version. Let's get to that in just a second. Let me just stop and say, real quick, just so new people know and old people do too. What's our dream stream goal?
79!
That's right. Say it again.
79!
You got it. So if anybody wants to support, there's links in the descriptions everywhere, and then there's also the people over on FTJ. There's a wallet thingy that they do there. What? Well, do you want me to stop and actually address you? Fuck off. Seriously, I'm doing something here. Fuck off. Cain's slaying of Abel is now seen to be the Eddic source of the slaying by Sir Gawain of the Green Man in the Arthurian legend. The fantastic finale of the decapitated Green Man walking off carrying his head in his hand was, we have seen, evidently owing to a whimsical reading by the later British bards of the Eddic text regarding a previous bloodless altercation. The eulogy of Sir Gawain in the Morte d'Arthur of Thornton's manuscript says, "This was Sir Gawain the Good, the Gladys of Othire, and the gracious Gum the Endire God." Oh, this is tough to read. Lived, I think, is Lifed, main hardest of hands, happiest in armies, in arms. His wow, this is really fucked up. We're gonna skip that one. Cain or Saint Michael, the victor over Satan in pre-Christian ancient and in modern Britain, the continent, Syria, and Asia Minor. Hey, I will just do this though. If you can't just chill and fucking watch or don't watch, then you got the problem. You're fucking immature and you're a bunch of fucking faggots. If you want to sit here and listen, that's fine. Cool. Enjoy it. If you don't and you want to start shit, then fuck off. Go fuck yourself, you fucking bitches. And if you want, I will be happy to box and beat the fuck out of any one of you fucking bitches. But other than that, let's get on with it, yeah? All right, let's do it. Where is it? Why am I not seeing the thing? There it is. All right, let's do it. Okay. Thornton manuscript says, "This was Sir Gawain the..." We already did that. Cain or Saint Michael, the victor over Satan in pre-Christian, ancient, and in modern Britain, the continent, Syria, and Asia Minor. Michael, the archangel, as the conqueror of Satan, was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, of the saints of early Christianity, which made hell a place of everlasting torment for evildoers. Who did that? Where's that written? Which made hell the place of everlasting torment for evildoers, instead of the mere abode of the dead, as the Hebrews and classic Greeks and Romans had come to regard it. Most of the early churches in Asia Minor, Syria, and the West, and especially in Britain, were dedicated to him. But they were usually on sites of ancient pre-Christian sanctuaries already dedicated to him. Thus, the latest authority on St. Michael writes, "Given an ancient dedication to St. Michael and a site associated with a headland, hilltop, or spring on a road or track of early origin, it is reasonable to look for a pre-Christian sanctuary. These pre-Christian sanctuaries in the West were presumably founded by the Phoenicians, who stamped Michael's effigy and name on their coins, as we have seen, and who gave their early port with its sun temple at the tin mines of Cornwall the name of Michael's Mount, just as the early Britons or Brito-Phoenicians represented him on their monuments. And St. Michael churches are not infrequent on British sites associated with the Great Orm or Worm Serpent legends, as at Ormsby in Norwich and Appleby or Ablesby in Westmoreland." Excuse me. There we go. Doing a lot of reading. Significantly also, St. Michael is always represented in art as a handsome youth with golden hair, like an Aryan, as in the Eddic description of Cain, and usually wearing a chaplet decorated with St. George's cross and armed with a lance and a shield bearing the same cross. And it is noteworthy that his festival day, the 29th of September, is also the festival of St. Gawain, who also defended the honor of maidens and whose name is obviously a variant of Cain. On the identity of Tubal Cain with King Cain, see Appendix 6. So Tubal means the destroyer or the killer, I think, is vanquisher of Cain. I'm saying the vanquisher of Baal, Tubal. So it's the killer of Baal, Cain, basically is how the name goes. We'll get there hopefully tonight. We're at 384. How much time we got? Let's see, well, how long have we been here? Let's see. We've got just an hour and a half in? Shit. All right, we can keep going. We have to get up and get a kratom in a little bit, but it's 9 your time. Okay, you guys are talking to each other. Call me. Okay. Never mind. Yeah, you guys are all talking to each other. All right, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody's comments. Let's go over to the FTJ real quick. What it is. There's lots in here. All right, hold on. We got to go through some of this. Yeah, Vocational Science of Freedom says, I've been reading the Edda. Good stuff. And Edward Snowman, we're just catching up. We saw these earlier. Aloha. Hello, Mr. Edward Snowman. I think you dropped the link to it before. That is the one I have. Okay, good. Yeah. Toxic Straight White Male. Hello. Great way to spend a Saturday night, said Edward Snowman. Thank you for your donation of $41. Thank you very, very much, sir. Hail Edward Snowman, said Vocational VSOF. And they profane everything they touch. Exactly. And then he says, that is fascinating. The evidence of the destruction of our history explained in this book, in this work. More proof every single time. Exactly. Indeed. What are we doing or not doing? Yeah. As in removing them from our society. If you need violence to enforce your ideas are Jewish. Right. There's a difference, like what they say, like murder. Murder is when you're harming somebody who's innocent. Killing is the protection of that act from happening, like the defense or the prevention of that act. Being a killer is not it's not a bad thing. Being a murderer is a piece of shit thing. Totems could be like mascots, like Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions. You've got Cappadocia he-goats and Karshemish serpents. yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's see. That is the issue with the idea of the thatness. You are always being watched over, and you must obey. Mm-hmm. Okay, you guys are talking to each other on that one. At some point, you will have to stop running and take a stand. Either you, your children, your grandchildren, better than them. And who's the? Okay, I thought maybe there's a quote there. And Boiling Frog is in the house. What's going on? All right, cool. We got caught up for the most part. I just lined out on that one. So basically, Crusaders and Kick are the same site. It's the same format. It's the same software. It's very easy to see. Oh, Reliable says, hail Ellie Waddell, hail King Adam. Yes. Awesome. And like I said, I will drop, if you're in my Patreon or in my Telegram, I think if you look in the files, you'll find a lot of the books from Ellie Waddell I already put in there. But yeah, I'll put in the link maybe if I remember at the end. Let's see. Where am I at? Did I switch it out? No, I didn't. I don't need to. Okay, good. We are here. We are here. Where did I leave off though? Golden hair, and usually wearing a chaplet decorated with St. George's cross and armed with a lance and a shield bearing the same cross. And it is noteworthy that his festival day, the 29th of September, is also the festival of... We did say this already. Obviously, okay, we did do all that. Okay, so let's go to Chaldean Lamentations on Death of Balder or Abel regarding the dying god theory. Hey, what happens when you nail somebody to 2 pieces of wood? Are they the dying god by chance? So why would they make that reflective of Abel, the most wickedly evil piece of shit ever to walk the earth? Huh? What do they have you doing by accident that you don't even know is happening? Anyway, moving on. Chaldee Lamentations for the death of Balder or Abel. The Lamentations of the Semitic Chaldees for the death of Abel form a large collection of hymns of the mother-son cult. And yes, again, that is as disgusting as it sounds. They were fucking. El and Balder. And Woden, by this time in the story, or earlier on, Woden is killed. So even illegitimate dad is out of the picture. Maybe that's how their magic works. They have to do some incest because the Frankists do that shit too. They pass their children around, and they're all about incest. And if you know anything about like the Lyrian Kabbalah, that is the basis of Zionism. Like that's just another way of just a new word, as you know, don't call them Frankists or Sabbateans anymore, but you call them Zionists. It's the same fucking thing. And if you know what the Frankists did, because it's been pretty well exposed, then you know exactly what modern day quote unquote Zionists are doing. Like there's any distinction. Judaism itself as a supremacy religion that constantly can't stop writing about or talking about how much they want you dead. What else do you need? Do you need to? Oh yeah, let's. Well, these guys over here are okay. The fuck? No. Find me the one that eats bacon and marries outside of his race, and then I'll say maybe he's broken free or something. I don't know. Mother son cult written in the, because why would you want to continue the? That's what I'm saying. Theirs should probably end and get mixed. Mother son cult written in the Babylonian tablets from about 3000 BC downward. In the following extracts from these Chaldee wailings, I love how they keep telling you what they are and what they've been and what they're doing and who they are by the wailings. For Abel, the title of the latter is usually rendered by translators as Tammuz or the established son, the son paramour of the mother weird, like wizard, but the female. After the Hebrew form of the name used by Ezekiel in describing the wailings for him by the Jewish women in Jerusalem. Oh, they're crying for Abel, are they? So they're just rotten to the fucking core, crying for a child-killing Lucifer-type Loki character. Yeah, just because you have emotions doesn't mean they're valid. Okay? But I use the better-known Semitic synonym of Ablu, the established son, which is the equivalent of Abel or Abal or Baal, Ibila of the Sumerians. His father too is significantly called therein Surtur, the Eddic Surtur or Surtar, Satan, and his mother is variously Gula, Eddic Gul or Gaul or Kiol, which turns into Kali, and Nana or Inanna, the name of Baldur's wife amongst the Woodenists. Oh, Baldur's wife is same as his mom, huh? Disgusting. Inini, because obviously he wouldn't have a wife because they didn't believe in that. They didn't have marriage until our people came into the picture. Marriage was introduced by Thor. A family life was introduced by Thor. Okay. Belief in a monotheistic benevolent creator was introduced by Thor, by Adam. And the veneration of the sun, which I have no problem with. And if anybody wants to call me a pagan, they're fucking retarded, because who's the real pagans? The ones going off into the groves to murder children and burn them alive and eat them? Or the guy who looks at the thing that gives everything life and says, hey, that's a pretty good symbol of a god. Or, at least whoever created that would probably be God. So same. The fuck is wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. It seems like the most logical shit on the fucking planet. Inini Nini of Edda, also Ilu, and Elatu, the Eddic L or LD. The reference to the loss of his stone bowl is also significant, and similarly, his death on the Euphrates, in agreement with his death at Eden or Karshemish on the upper Euphrates, as detailed in the Edda. The mother Inini, even as his mother, for him that comes not wails. The Ilu, remember, Ilu Limnu. I gotta show you this thing, and you'll understand how wickedly fucked up that title is. The Ilu queen for her husband wails, for the brother who slumbers in the city walls. Alas, O shepherd, Lord Ablu, the established son, for the far removed there is wailing. Ah, me, my child, the far removed, my anointer, the far removed. Ew. My child, my anointer? Is that semen? Are they talking? Is that what they're saying? I hope not. The queen of the temple who cries, alas, my husband, alas, my son. My husband, alas, my son. Sorry. A Cartesian compassionate am I. In the temple high and low there is weeping. Now you understand, like, if this is their core, there's got a lot of shit that they don't have any problem with, because it's at the core of their belief structure. They're not gonna demonize pedophilia, that's for sure. In the temple high and low there is weeping, wailing for the house of the Lord they rise. For the perishing wedded ones, for perishing children it is, the dark-headed people create not. Hair, when they say dark-headed, dark hair. Him of the plains, why have they slain? Maybe because he was a kill crazy son of a bitch and deserved everything he got. Oh yeah, and like the whole witchcraft thing, and pharmakia and poisoning people and torturing them and eating babies. Like that stuff. That stuff. The shepherd, the wise one. The man of sorrows, why have they slain? Jesus Christ, this make me sick. The lady of the vine stalk with the lambs and calves languishes. The Lord shepherd of the folds lives no more. Can you see how it all depends on the perspective? The perspective of who's telling the story? Because you would see this and be like, wow, you're being so insensitive. No, they're talking about like the worst fucking human being ever to come about. Well, at least in this day and age. Maybe we've topped it since then, but Jesus Christ. The Lord shepherd of the folds lives no more. The husband of the Elu queen lives no more. The husband he's talking about her son. The Lord of the cattle stalls lives no more. In the flood of the shore of the Euphrates, why hast thou taken him? Established son art thou, thou who was hurried away, cruelly was carried away, consort of Anini, son of Surtur. Yeah, don't say son of Anini after saying consort, because that would make people a little squeamish. Who was cruelly carried away, the shining Burmese stone bowl from thy side is divested, stolen. Because the established son has gone forth in his sheepfold, there is no creating. Is that another reference to like fucking mom? Jesus Christ, dude. Edenite Semitic origin of the supposed dying god wailings. Here we have now disclosed through the Edda, the Edenite human origin of the supposed dying god wailings, which it is the present fashion for theoretical writers of comparative mythology and religion to interpret as magic rites for procuring the return of a New Year's vegetative life after the season of drought and decay. Yeah, that's usually when they do a whole bunch of murdering of children to bring back the sun. Yeah. And it is further assumed that these people were in the habit of periodically killing their kings. See? For these magical rites as a sacrifice for the people. King for a day. That's where that term comes from. As a sacrifice for the people with the sacramental eating of his body. Yeah. It's good to be the king until the day it isn't. On the contrary, these limitations for the death of Abel or Tammuz are now seen to be evidently more merely the sorrowful observances of the anniversary of the slaying of their old tribal Chaldean chief and sacrificing serpent priests of their forefather in Eden. Yeah, they were awfully broken up about the worst fucking people on the planet, weren't they? At the hands of the reforming Aryan prince Cain or Saint Michael by the Semitic descendants of Abel, Set, Balder, and El, and described in the Edda. And it is paralleled by the present-day wailing of the Hebrews at the walls of Jerusalem in commemoration of the later great historic Old Hebrew tribal bereavement. And they're going to go over number 28 now. Like all these scenes that you guys haven't, if you're just tuning in for the first time, or if you're listening, if you're just looking for podcasts, they should be popping up on certain. I got kicked off Spotify, but I am on there with a different name now. But the ones that come from Spreaker, they're all in the row. So episode 1 through 5 is already on there, and they're on 6 right now. You'll find some of them on FTJ, but some of them got knocked off because of some encoder problem. So Rumble would probably be the best place for ball busters and it's the biggest channel. It's like over 5,000 people. So if you go there, you should see it if you scroll down far enough. Capture and Slaying of the Dragon. Is that where I'm at? Yeah. Capture and Slaying of the Dragon Priestess of Eden by Adam George in Sumerian, Babylonian, Phoenician, Egyptian, Indian, and Hebrew versions, and the hero as Adam or St. George of Cappadocia, which is where Hymen or Heaven or Thor's hangout, the Ode of the Inn, his citadel, is. Sumerian and Babylonian versions. The Sumerian and Babylonian hymns and litanies are full of this epoch-making event and gratitude for it. Thus, a Sumerian hymn refers to it. Thou Adar, who destroyed the life of the evil one, may thy heart be exalted. In the scene of Adar or Indara slaying the dragon is frequently represented on Sumerian, Babylonian, and Hittite sacred seals. Later, this achievement was credited by the Babylonians to Adam, or Bel's son, Marduk, Cain, as the Sun Duke or Archangel who slew the young dragon Aplu or Abel, who is significantly called the young Hydra. They called Abel the young Hydra in the central Edda lay. In these later Babylonian accounts of the polytheistic period, when the idea of a god first imagined by Adam had become adopted by the Chaldees and they fucked it all up and extended by them to include their deified mother, son. See, this is what they did. Okay, there was no concept of a god. They were demon conjurers, period, the end. They didn't have a creation story. They had nothing. They meet our people and immediately, these are good ideas. There's nothing wrong with using ideas. It is wrong when you completely invert the reality of something to make yourself a artificial bubble world where all, and then you enforce that mental psychosis on others, just like fucking trans people do when enforcing their fucking their what do you call it, their pronouns on you and shit like that. Like, fuck you. The Chaldees extended by them to include their deified mother, son, El. Let's see. Woden and other personages deified by their priest. This old mother priestess, and as the dragon, is now considered a separate she-devil from their ancient El, which it's not true. Same person. And is generally called Tiamat. They say Tiamat here, but I'm just telling you what you're going to find it be called in, in a hardcore band, it's called Tiamat, but it's also, we're going to find in the Babylonian, which is also in this book. Right here. Right there. It's on my site, or you can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. As we have seen, also Mother Huber, and described as the plague, the fearful dragon, the dragon which shines brightly, the female spirit who devours with a serpent's mouth. Bel Marduk, as the champion of heaven, receives instructions from the council of gods in heaven. Oh, why is that? Because it's not real gods. That's why. It's a bunch of goths. G-O-T. Got me ons. That was the original way of spelling goth. Goth is with us. Why not? Why not? Because all they're doing is deifying people anyway. That's not to say that there's not one benevolent creator out there, because that's exactly what they believed in. And they're the goths, or the goth, right? But they themselves are just being deified for being awesome people. So think about it. Everywhere they go, they create civilization. They enhance and they enhance the lives of everybody through their innovations, the society that they built that's safe and protected, like all these things. Agriculture, life is easier and better now because of these people's presence. They taught them things. They taught them music. They taught them arts. They taught them words and language and math and all this shit. They're like, wow, science is cool. So yeah, nothing wrong with being like, these guys are awesome. Nothing wrong with them being like, these guys are gods. I don't know, let's go a little far, but take the compliment, right? It's when people don't get that, it's just veneration, that shit gets all crazy. And then they start calling us the polytheists because of other people deifying great men and women in our history. Now we're pagans and polytheists. It's like, whoa. No, the pagan is that Wicca fuck. That Wicca fuck, that person is straight from the moon cult, and they're killing children still. Go after those people. Christians. Christians wouldn't have anything. They would have no outline for their bullshit if it wasn't for Adam, if it wasn't for the fact that he brought marriage, that he brought the idea of a single God, all this stuff, baptism. What the fuck would they be without that? Or all the attributes that they use to make all their other characters. All right, so it says, Council of God, go thou and cut off Tiamat's life breath. So yeah, the Elohim is what they call the Council of the Gods. The Elohim. Those are just a council of the Goths. Significantly, in the Assyrian version, he is armed with the invincible club, spear, dagger, and the net, and the plant which annihilates poison. Right, the rowan apple tree. The leading incidents in the fight and slaying of the dragon, according to the Syro-Babylonian tradition, are indicated in the following extracts from the long original text translated by Professor Sayce. He, Marduk, made a snare to enclose the dragon of the sea. His hand brought the snare near unto the bow of the father Anu. Now, when you go into Anu and you look into the Babylonian, you're going to see some strange stuff. There's the resting seas, and there's like the sea salt, the salt seas, or Tiamat is one, and Anu is you'll see if you ever get into. You can just go into this book and find that. Then Bel opened his snare and enclosed her. He swung the club, he shattered her, he mastered her heart, he bound her and ended her life. He threw down her corpse, he stood on it. Yes. He twisted his heel in her fucking skull. All this, it will be seen, is in essential agreement with the earlier authentic tradition preserved in the Eddas, and the standing on the corpse compares with the Eddic stepped over. And it discloses that the legend of the slaying of the dragon by Adam George did not arise as a priestly myth of the sun vanquishing the demon of darkness and reign amidst and hitherto supposed, but was founded on the actual historical human achievement of Adam in his vanquishing the serpent priestess in his civilizing war against Eden. So like, oh no, that's just these superstitious weirdos. Because like, how many... I understand primitive people, but you only need to be alive for a couple days to realize that the sun comes back up the next fucking day. You don't have to do all these whoas. It happens without you doing that, right? The fact that they was like, oh no, that's what this story means. Like, fucking really? You really think that that's what they thought? Phoenician version. The later Phoenicians represented Adam George as mounted on horseback and spearing the dragon, and it was they, presumably, who brought to their colony in Britain the mounted version of that legend. Egyptian version. Why would it be in Egypt? Oh yeah, because we founded that too. Or our Gothic Aryan ancestors did anyway. In the Egyptian version, the great serpent of evil, the arch enemy of Ra, the sun god. Remember, we're the sun venerators. Ours is a sun religion. Theirs was a moon and Saturn. The arch enemy of Ra, the sun god, and slain by the latter, title of Thor and Ravas in the Vedas, is usually called Apop. And I'm assuming that's probably like the Greek Apophis. Probably. Which is like yeah. It's usually called a pop and supposed to be a male, though the cat's head sometimes given it would rather imply feminine gender. Its titles, moreover, of Hemhem, Surimtal, and Bedeshu seem to equate with the Eddic titles of El as Jaime or Hurim, and Gram, the Sarama of the Vedas, and Bud of the above Eddic lays. The Egyptian accounts of the slaying of this serpent woman, because remember, she's of the serpent cult, so it's all about how they write things to indicate what, you know what I mean? So people get this mixed up or wrong, and then it becomes mythology rather than reality. So the Egyptian accounts of the slaying of this serpent by Ra agree generally with the Edda. Ra captured the serpent by fetters, and Ra pierceth thy head, he slitteth up thy face, he divided thy head. Okay, this is exactly what they say actually in Babylonian. I think it's the Emulish. I think it's the Emulish. I think that's like the Babylonian Genesis, where Marduk splits Tiamat because she's Tiamat, right? So he splits Tiamat, and the Tigris and the Euphrates are supposed to allegedly pour out of her. Anyway. Divide thy head, and it is crushed in thy land. Thy land, yeah, I said it right. Thy bones are smashed to pieces. And the chapter in the book on its overthrow is entitled Defiling a Pop with the Left Foot, in keeping with the Eddic statement that her corpse was stepped over. Striking confirmation of the Eddic accounts are found in the scenes pictured on the beautiful alabaster sarcophagus of Seti I, the father of Ramses the Great, about 1370 BC. We held on to our histories for quite a while if this all happened in 3380 BC. Now in the same museum in London, several of the details of the scenes of the capture of this serpent on this ancient Egyptian monument, namely the mighty hand, etc., now receive their long-forgotten explanation by means of our British Edda. According to the Egyptian legend, after the hooking of the serpent, 12 strong-armed gods were unable to hold the chain, and the serpent was escaping when there arose a hidden hand which grasped the chain and prevented it moving. That hand is now seen to be Cain's. Heck yeah. Indian versions. So why would the Egyptians be writing about Aryans, you say? Because they were one. God damn it. That's why they all say, oh yeah, they have European. These mummies look European in phenotype, or whatever the fuck that word is. Oh, you mean they're not black? Then stop making the fucking artwork look like that. Was that their one accomplishment, and then they decided to do nothing else ever again? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Is that why they were able to create Egypt? And I, if you're gonna ask me, I'm gonna say that those pyramids were already there. They are more than 5,000 years old, in my opinion. So even if we establish a territory there, it would make sense if there's structures there that you just use what's already there. It makes it a lot easier to do shit, right? But I think they are probably much, much older and probably may have survived a reset or two. Some sort of cataclysm wiped out memory, at least, of people, and was rediscovered. The Vedas are full of references to Indra, or Indara, slaying the great serpent demon therein, styled Ahi. Ahi is like a type of sushi. Ahi Bunya, or Vritra, the brute. It is represented in the Vedas as a male whom Indra kills by striking with his bolts, and he shatters its fortresses. The Indian epics, preserving her original female character, represent Bur of Vindi as Perthu Vanya, as justifying the slaying of the Earth Mother, who had caused untold misery to the early world, in the following words. Listen to this. This is great. Remember this and get it tattooed on your forehead, okay? When the happiness of many is secured by the destruction of one malignant being or type of person, the death of that being is an act of virtue. Go forth and do good things now, children. Yeah. Buddha also, here's your justification. Just revert back to this in your trial. Just be like, no, it's right there. See? When happiness of many is secured by the destruction of one malignant being, the death of that being is an act of virtue. So, when's my parade? Buddha also in the collection of the old world. See, if we owned this world still, that would be the result. There would be a parade. You know, you wouldn't be putting away the people who are aware of the crimes rather than the criminals. Buddha also in the collection of the old world legends with which he illustrated his sermons retells, it's like saying retold, it's just an older way of saying it, so it's like retails the form of the legend with death of his sanguinary sacrificing matriarch, which was current in India in his day in the 5th century BC. Her name, Kali, well equates with the Eddic Kiol, or Gaul, and with the Sumerian Gul, or Gula. He says, rather gruesomely, see Kali trust for burial, loathsome sight, clumsy and huge she lies, the crow-black troll. Broken her limbs, and from her broken skull, the clotted brain like curd oozing white. Such is mortal woman. It says such twice. That wasn't me stuttering. Hebrew versions. The serpent, we are told in the Hebrew Genesis, was already in the Garden of Eden before the fall of man, because it was the fucking cult. and thus presumably at home there, and could speak because they're people, and that it was more subtle than any beast of the field, and that it was told that the seed of the woman, Eve, shall bruise thy head. This prophecy after the fact, right? This latter prophecy presumably referred to the later legend of the Gentiles Cain hooking of the serpent or serpent priestess El. The slaying of the serpent by Adam is referred to several times in the Hebrew Old Testament under Adam's title of Ea or Jah. Yeah, that's right. Adam is Jehovah. Isn't that nice? It's also Zeus. The Sumerian, now, granted, once the Semites get a hold of that, that's not what his nature is anymore. It's inverted because that's what they do. They flip everything up. They invert every fucking thing, good to bad. They're so clever, aren't they? It's fucking retarded. The Sumerian Ea synonym reading of Adam Induru or Indra's title under which he was laterally deified, and which Aryan title was bodily borrowed by the Hebrews as the later title of their tribal god, Jah, that's why I just was saying, Jehovah. Though Jah breakest the heads of the dragons in the water, thou breakest the heads of the Leviathan in pieces. And Job, who cares about their shit? But anyway, let's read it. And Job says, his hand hath pierced the fleeing serpent. Canst thou draw out the Leviathan with the hook? See, they're telling you the story over and over again. How do we not? She went overboard, he hooked her, he had a net, and then he fucking killed her. That's it. It was a woman. It was a slimy little fucking child killer. So we know what we need to do. The greatest thing that ever happened in all of history that was told for thousands upon thousands of years before the child killers got a hold of the story and destroyed it and torpedoed it and drove it into the ground was of mankind, us, European types, killing a bunch of child killers, getting rid of them, and then rehabilitating the people that they were tormenting and torturing, and creating great civilizations for a golden age. What better purpose? What are we waiting for? You know, my grandfather didn't have a Ferrari. He had a family, and he was a great man. I'm not sure where else we would need if we were able to accomplish that. If we were able to accomplish getting rid of the threats that harm the most innocent. Canst thou draw out the Leviathan with a hook, or his tongue with a cord which thou lettest down? Canst thou put a hook in his nose? Adam George of Cappadocia and Eden as the historical human original of St. George and the Dragon and the patron saint of England. This victory over and slaying of the dragon matriarch priestess of the sanguinary bestial cult of Eden by Adam George of Cappadocia is now disclosed as the human historical origin of the legend of St. George and the Dragon, and it receives historical, inscriptional, and relatively contemporary proof by the votive or votive or votive. I don't know. Record engraved on the captured magic bowl of Karshemish or Eden by King Udug, which is Enoch's. I think it's Enoch's son, the great grandson of Adam Thor, to whose memory it was dedicated at the foundation of the great central sun temple at Nippur in Mesopotamia, as we have seen under the Holy Grail episode. This dedication attests the immense historical importance which King Adam's early descendants placed upon his victory over Eden. The conspicuous use of the Red Cross in this engagement is also significant and confirmatory of his identity with St. George, whose name he actually bears in some of the verses, and the numerous early Sumerian, Babylonian, and Hittite seals representing this event pictured the cross in the form of a St. George cross and only very rarely as St. Andrew's cross, which latter original was a St. George's cross, which was a really St. George's cross tilted over as carried in action. So if it's on your shoulder and you're leaning it, instead of it being straight up and down, it's tilted a little bit. So it's on its like what is like a 15-degree turn or something like that, maybe. Does that make sense? The great patron saint of England is thus disclosed to be none other than Adam, the much maligned by Hebrews and through them by modern Christians. Yes, right. So we're told to hate the greatest person who ever come to live, and they happen to be our ancestors because religion is more important than blood, because religion is more important than truth, because religion is more important than reality. And what do every fucking Abrahamic death cult do? They go and destroy history. The Romans did this shit. The Christians went on a fucking rampage destroying pre-Christian shit, calling everything pagan, even though they're the fucking pagans. And what did Islam do? Pre-Islamic, destroying shit. Even ISIS destroyed Palmyra, which was like Baalbek, right? And ISIS wasn't even, ISIS is another whole fucking story, but you know what they do. They just, every place that they go, they destroy great, wonderful history, toppling things that have been standing for thousands of years and burning and destroying anything that would give any proof to the people that they weren't the first and they were not the progenitors of morality, and these aren't their stories. The best way to be the original, if you can't come up with shit on your own, is to steal and then kill the person who fucking originated it, or erase their memory in the minds of others. Then you can be the big hot shot. Yeah, it's one thing for Jewish supremacy is not about being the actual best or better than anybody. It's about killing everybody who is better than you, leaving only you left, and therefore by default you make yourself correct. Because they're not smart, they're not clever, they can't create, and they can go fuck themselves. The amount of damage that their religions that they're backed behind and that they work through and manipulate have destroyed us for so long, thousands of years. And it's about fucking time. I hope we can make it back. I hope we can get back. That's why I'm doing this, so we get to understand who we really are, and we're not having to follow the rules or the steps or play the game the way that they set it out before us. That's not how we win. We have to throw the fucking board right in their face and just do things our way and remember who the fuck we are. The great patron saint of England is thus disclosed to be none other than Adam, the much maligned by Hebrews and through them by modern Christians in ignorance of his identity with the great Gentile Gothic king Adam George of Cappadocia, the patron saint of England, Andrew of the Scots, and Prometheus, the greatest of world kings who raised the fallen men of the old pre-Adamite world to a higher civilization, to the higher civilization. Moreover, we also now find that Adam Thor, under his Sumerian title of Zak, the Sig of the Edda, is the historical original of Jack the Giant Killer, of the old nursery tale, which is seen to be an infantile version of one of the greatest historical events in the life of our ancestral early Aryans in establishing for us the higher civilization. Every fucking story of any importance that people have latched onto and have been identified with, even when they tried to stomp this story down of our people, has survived in multiple ways. But we still didn't have that understanding that was necessary to reconnect with who we are. That is what Elie Wiesel did for us. And it happened in 1930, right? Obviously, between those two world wars, there was a huge crackdown on anything like that. It was totally taboo, God forbid, since World War II, to ever challenge a certain group of fucking faggots. All right, so they're going over scene 29 right now. It says Adam, Thor, which is, remember, if you see H-E-R, that means Aryan. If you see A-R, that means Aryan. So it's Air Thor is Aryan Thor. Thor is Aryan Thor. Enthronement as Victor and Eden in Sumerian, Hittite, and Cadman British versions, and on the Rome title for Eden and its Edenites. Thank you. They're coming back to it. There was a portion of this that was discussed yesterday. I'm glad it's coming up again because now you get to hear it if you weren't here yesterday. And by the way, guys, please, 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 if you like hot sauce, just go to the semperfryllc.com. If you like hot sauce, you know, and you live in the States, it's a pain in the ass to ship outside of the country. I'll do it. I mean, I do it a lot, but I'd prefer not to. Is that all right? All right, so let me just do this real quick to show you. I'll be right back with this stuff, I promise. Best channel on Rumble. Check out the earlier episodes, Andy. Oh, okay, you're talking to him? Cool. All right, says, I already did that part. So if you scroll down into the descriptions, I'm not sure where this is going to pop up and not pop up. Some descriptions are more complete than others. But if you're on FTJ, if you're on Rumble, I think I posted it in the Crusaders one. Yeah, so, okay. Right underneath all this talky talk here, you see the Patreon, which is where all these go after the fact in the top tier. I broadcast right now on the second and third tier, and then it gets saved in the third tier. We're gonna roll right into Makers of Civilization and Race and History about another L.A. Waddell book, and into his biography, and a lot of that's gonna just be on Patreon. So if you want to get in on it, please do that. SemperFryLLC.com is my website. Foodstar is 6% off. So if you come to here, Foodstar is the code for 6% off all of the hot sauces that I make. All right, so these are the collections, and then you see the sauces, the individual ones right here. That's me when I was 4 years old with my grandmother and grandfather, and I think we're probably right outside of the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. We went down to Winnebago. It was good times. You know, it's nice when you look back and you remember, yeah, the good times were when everybody was alive, you know? Well, I fucked myself up just now by saying that. Anyway, Venom is a great sauce. Smoke Boss is awesome. Nemesis is mango habanero. There's actually a Zeus juice, extra hot, with it's extra hot in comparison to the regular Zeus. So this is lots of garlic cayenne and lots of garlic cayenne and habanero. And then, yeah, there you go. You can check them out. There's creatine it's clean source supplements. And then Dr. Monzo's BB5 for 5% off for life. We're going to get back to it right away, I promise. All right. So the 90 essential nutrients that everybody should be on to be healthier. And you should be checking us out on Wednesday with Dr. Glidden. That's the other thing you should do. Be checking us out on Wednesdays with Dr. Glidden on the Rumble channel. Because through StreamYard, I can only stream through 3 different places. So I have to make my choices. I'm not going to spend the extra money. They already wanted like $70 a month for that bullshit service. All right, so whole food multivitamin. Boom. Okay. You can click on these once you. So again, you go to my site, semperfryllc.com. You just click on this and remember code BB5. This link is already 10% off their main site, which is Azure Living Well. So you're already getting 10% off just by going here, and then you get another 5% off with my code. So this is the whole food multivitamin. This is the majority. If you can get nothing else, you're going to want to have this. My daughter and I take it every day. Scrolling down. So the Alaskan cod liver oil right here, that's your essential fatty acids. Now, this is a 1,200 milligram gel tab, which is nitrogen filled, so it doesn't it doesn't oxidize. But if you have kids and you want them to take it, there's a 415 milligram size here. So maybe you get one size for them and one size for you, you know. Scroll down, and then you're going to get to this thing called load more. Fulvic humic blend. This is all your minerals. This is super, super, super important. What's also important to know is that even if you're taking the max dose, which is 1/8 of a teaspoon, this will last you 90 days. So this price right here isn't going to be every month. It's going to last you for at least 90 days. If you're only taking 1/16 of a teaspoon, it's going to be 2 a year that you need. Okay. And then you scroll down until you see there's some bentonite clay there. You'll see IP6 Supreme. Now, this is really good for your heart, really good for your bones. It's calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and inositol. So if you have people telling you you're anemic and then you find out you have a shit ton of iron in your tissues, this will help put the iron where it belongs and flush out the shit that you don't need. Because oxidative stress or chronic fatigue. A lot of times it's a buildup of iron in your tissues. You'll get soreness in your joints and stuff like that. The IP6 Supreme helps fix all that. It also helps, it's got a cancer fighting property to it because of that too, because these types of things that happen with the imbalances are where things start to go wrong in your body. So if you have all the things, all the raw materials that your body needs, it knows how to fix itself. But it needs help. It needs what you don't get from your diet anymore, thanks to the fucking Jews. Okay, back to it now. Oh yeah, I meant to check to see what you guys are doing over here. A pyramid is like an imitation, a mountain to keep watch from, in a place where there aren't any mountains. This is like Hymen, and is probably a sign of an honor culture like the Sumerians. That was Edward Snowman, and then says, also, I think the Stone Age and pyramid might be the only sort of watchtower that they could build. So maybe the Tower of Babel was a pyramid. Well, the Tower of Babel, from what I gather when we get into the makers of civilization and race and history, may have had a lot of evidence as being a place to store grain for to prevent famine. And Nimrod is, I think, another name for either Cain or his son. So they make Nimrod to be this great hunter, which is what Cain is known as, Lo the rider. But they make him also ugly because he goes against the Semites somehow, right? Well, what did he do to go against the Semites? This fucking cult wanted to be able to starve people at will. What did they do to the freaking Russians? What did they do to the Ukrainians? There was more than one famine between Lenin and Stalin. What do they do all the time when they get into power? Even when they put somebody into power, like the Jews put Mao into power, what happened to the people there? Everybody gets starved. It's part of their Talmud. They say you can do things by proxy and it's fine, right? Poisoning and starving are the two favorite things to do, right? So they were pissed off that our people, Aryans, Gothic Aryans, created a defense against famine, times of scarcity. That was going against their quote unquote gods. That's why Nimrod was shed on in the Bible, because it was a place to store grain, and everybody came together to help to build it because it was of mutual benefit to everybody involved. And then they made, again, more of their historical bullshit that they did. So the town of, the whole story of Babel, it's babbling biblical bullshit. That's Babel. It's funny because even back 2017 or 18, one of the very first videos that I ever made, I said, it's pretty funny that the one guy that they call a Nimrod in the Bible is the only guy who's not a fucking Nimrod. Because that was a word that my dad used to use to call somebody an idiot. He's like, he called him Nimrod, So like the only guy that's not a Nimrod, because that makes sense. If your God's gonna, destroy the earth with water, make something a little bit taller so you can breathe. If this maniac who likes to throw temper tantrums and destroy the world, maybe we should make some defenses against that. How's that bad? All right. Let's get into it. All right. No, that's not on the... I think I need to get rid of that part. Boing. There we go. Adam Airthor's enthronement as victor in Eden and Sumerian, Hittite, and Cave. We already said all that stuff. Sumerian version of King Thor's enthronement in Eden. In the Sumerian Psalms are references to King Dar or Adam. Okay, so he's called Dan a lot because of Dardanos, like in Homer. He's from the Dan tribe that wasn't Semitic. It wasn't fucking them again. Like everything that they say that they are, they're not. And the Dardanelles, these are all places that were established by his ancestors or his relatives before he came down, grandfather, whatever, until he came into Troy. He set up weaving stations there to create clothes because they made their clothes out of cloth versus the bear sarkers, which is the bear skins, right? Or animal skins, which were the other Chaldee Semites that they came across. In the Sumerian Psalms, reference Adam's enthronement on the throne of the Shrine Supreme, which is obviously in Eden after his victory there, as well as numerous representations of the event on the sacred Sumerian seal picturing his enthronement on the lion throne. Thus, it is referred to in some psalms on the throne of the shrine supreme, even on his or Thor's seat, is a brilliant light when he lights it up. At the festival, they establish him joyfully on his seat. O Lord, a station on high is thy habitation. Dar or Thor, the warrior of the mountain who subjugatest, who carried away the land of the disobedient, may thy heart be exalted. It appears to be from this enthronement at the head center of the lion tribe at Eden that Adam Dardan came to be represented as seated on a lion throne with his foot upon a lion. Hittite version of his enthronement at Eden. The level of translative nonsense that people go through just goes to show how like infantile or just full of shit people are who make these translations in the first place. It took an L.A. Waddell to get shit right. The Hittite version of King Adam Thor's enthronement in Eden is well seen not only in the Hittite sacred seals, like shit tons of them. And when we get into the Makers of Civilization, you're going to see a lot more of these seals, usually about that big, with all these scenes from the Edda going, and these seals are in excavations that have got to be at least 5,000 years old. So the Hittite version of King Adam Thor's enthronement in Eden is well seen not only in the Hittite sacred seals, but also in the magnificent Hittite sculpture of him enthroned on the lion throne, which was actually found at Karshemish or Eden. Ancient British version of Adam's victory over Satan or Sut, Seth, Typhon, Loki in Eden, or Abel, right? In Eden and the enthronement there. Adam's victory over the historical human Satan in Eden and the cherubims with flaming swords and his assumption of sovereignty there as enthroned king of Eden was clearly known to the British poet Cadman, and presumably so through the Eddas, as his meter is in the ordinary Eddic measure, and the most of his words are later dialectic forms of the Eddic, and his title and his name Metod, for God as the creator, is suggestive of Mi'ad, title of Adam Thor, who was laterally deified by the Aryans. In his poem on Genesis, so he did so many. So this was a string of things that happened for being such a freaking amazing human being. And like, how would you not deify this dude? Like, who else would be worthy if not him? But it did kind of confuse a lot of people who didn't understand that. This guy. Oh, God talked to you, huh? Well, yeah, because it was actually a dude. You know what I mean? Why did God stop talking to people? Well, because they stopped writing stories about heroes that they then later deified. That's why. In his poem on Genesis, Cadman, even on being Christianized, cannot divest himself of the old true tradition of his Briton ancestors regarding Adam, and makes Satan or Sut on being dispossessed lament, saying, "That is my greatest sorrow, that Adam, wrought of earth, should hold my firm set throne and live in friendly joy while we endure this bitter woe in hell." Which is funny because hell is what Eden was called. Okay, here it is. All right, everybody, if you're still with us, pay attention. This is fucked up. Mind-blowing shit right here. Rome title for Eden and the mother-son cult. What? R line over the O to make it long sound. Rome or Rome title for Eden and its wolf tribe votaries of the mother-son cult. Now think about that for a second. Do you know the story of Romulus and Remus? I know this comes thousands of years later, but this is the remnants of this cult passing around through history, chasing us they probably chased us from Greece into fucking Rome to destroy that as we were building it. The story of Romulus and Remus and the being suckled by the wolf. What is that? What do you think that's a symbol of? Where they came from? The wolf mother or the serpent wolf cult. of the Edenites. All right? In Sumerian, the abode of the oracular priestess from about 3100 BC onwards is called Eden or Eton, the latter form being in series with the Eddic Eoten name for Eden. And significantly, the Sumerian word sign was also given the synonym word form of Rum, R-U-M, which is in agreement with the Rome title in this Eddic lay. Rome of the Edda is thus seen to have been a synonym for Eden and its wolf tribe priestess and Chaldee people. This now appears to explain the legend that the mythical founders of the new Roman Italy, Romulus and Remus, were wolf-suckled, suggesting that they were of the mother cult of the wolf tribe of the Romes, and the Italian physical type is the same non-Aryan type as that of the aboriginal dark Chaldeans, Lycians, which actually means wolf, etc., the so-called Mediterranean or Iberian race. So Mediterranean, yeah. Moreover, Rome or Romit was the title of the Set wolf and serpent-worshipping aborigines of ancient Egypt, and Romani is the title of the dark, non-Aryan fortune-telling gypsies and weirds of Romania and elsewhere of the Mediterranean or Iberian race, and the present-day Muslim title of Rum or Rum for Asia Minor and for their religious capital at Constantinople was not borrowed from the Italian Rome, as is generally supposed. It was already there. It was already established as that name. So that tells you a lot, doesn't it? What it also tells you, or I have to add here, is that just because you may be a Mediterranean type, there were plenty of not only Gothic Aryans in those territories as well, but there was also plenty of, just like wherever else our people went, or the Gothic Aryan people went, there were the pieces of shit, just like everywhere else, and the people who were happy that they showed up. So just because the Italians might have been slightly different ethnicity, or maybe a different ethnicity than them, doesn't mean that they were just discarded as being, oh, you're not, you know what I mean? Like they were, a lot of them were valiant allies. You know, Greece was actually comprised by with a lot of, earlier on, not later, with a lot of the Gothic Aryan type. But anyway, I digress. I'm German, Irish, and Italian, Southern Italian. And actually, no, all the way up to Naples, so I guess, shit, that's almost German again, right? When you get to kind of to northern Italy. Anyhow. Okay. It thus appears that the original head center seat of the mother-son cult, with its shaven and befrocked matriarchist priests and priestesses, inveterately antagonistic to the monotheistic idea of God. Let's say that again. The cult, with its shaven and befrocked matriarchist priests and priestesses, inveterately antagonistic to the monotheistic idea of God and to the advance of the higher knowledge and civilization. What type of creature is against the advancement of higher knowledge and civilization? Explain that to me. Somebody who wants you to know nothing so that they can constantly harm you and be dominating over you. And then in that case, if they keep you stupid, they are the smartest people in the world. It's not because they're smart. They just have to be smarter than you. Do you see how they're creating that through tech? Do you see how they're creating that through our society? How they're dumbing down and de-evolution of people? Do you see that? They already weakened us. They made people lose their warrior edge over time. It was from prehistoric time immemorial called Rome or Rome and the home of Mother Mary, which is another weird one because Mother Mary, obviously you know who Jesus' mom is, but Mary is also a name for Elu, El. Regeneration of Eden, they actually called her Mother Mary. Regeneration of Eden and uplifting of man by Adam in the Sumerian and Babylonian versions. Sumerian and Babylonian versions of the regeneration of Eden by King Dar or Adam. There are frequent references in the Sumerian hymns to King Dar or Adam scattering the seed of his higher civilization and exalting of man, and his clemency towards his quondam enemies. Thus, for example, in the same hymn which celebrates his capture of the stone bowl of Eden, Dar, now semi-deified, is acclaimed as Dar, or Thor, exalter of man, who makes joyful his side, the Lord who grants pardon to his conquered city. Right. Fair. Boy, does this not sound a lot like the Scythians or the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths? Have everybody ever watched Astrologos? You remember how they treated the people that they were fierce, strong, powerful warriors, the Scythians, but they always treated those they conquered with dignity and respect. Notice a trend here with our people, right? The Lord who grants pardons to his conquered city has driven his chariot over the mountain, has scattered wide the seed. Men altogether have proclaimed his name daily for sovereignty over them. They're asking for that. They want that. Thou wert the warrior of the mountain who subjugated. And you don't have to subjugate in a mean way. We just have to put down the bad part. This annexation and transformation of Eden Urdu, or into a real paradise by Adam and Dara and his son Cain, the sun duke Marduk, now explains how Urdu or Eridu came in the later Sumerian and Babylonian hymns to be called a home of these two deified Gothic heroes, and in secular literature was the land of the Amorites. Oopsie. A people whom I have shown in previous works to have been a branch of the Hittites and of Gothic race. Boy, those Jews are really clever about picking out who to hate, aren't they? Indeed, King Adam, Dar's magnanimous forgiveness of the Abelites, Balderites, or Tammuzites, with permission to return to the reformed Eden when they themselves had become law-abiding. So he reformed these people from their old ways, giving them a chance and opportunity. Now, again, that might not have been the best idea. Maybe a little bit more scrutiny should have been applied, because that cult and that mentality is still here, right? And we know what kind of lying liars who lie they are. But again, it seems to be like our blind side is that we are not of their nature so much that it takes us a long time to even comprehend that somebody would be as capable of being as treacherous as they are. Like, there was a time when, the crypto Jew thing was a very easy thing for people to get away with, pretending that they're a Christian, like the Alumbrado, the Moranos and stuff like that, because nobody would have ever contemplated that somebody would lie about their religious beliefs and go that far to do so. They didn't understand the mind of the Jew, and it's been our downfall a lot. Because we can't put ourselves in that position to even, but once you understand the sinister mind, you kind of wish you didn't. But it's the most beneficial to you when having to deal with others, that you're cautious. You know what I mean? To return to the reformed Eden when they themselves had become law-abiding and somewhat reformed, with a reformed new generation of mother-son leaders to dwell amongst Adam's civilized sons of God. What we're talking about here, the Goths. Seems to be reflected even in the later hymns of the Chaldees themselves, though they suppress therein all reference to Adam's name. Of course they do. Thus these later Chaldee hymns sing. They sing to Inanna, they sing to El. The second, to her women cried, in heaven there is light. On earth there is light. Magnified is he, magnified is the Lord. In Urdu, or Erd of Eden, its brick walls respond. Upon Urdu a faithful eye he cast. There the valiant in his boat descended. Where grass was not, there grass is eaten. Where water was not, water is drunk. Because he's fixing the land. He's cultivating shit. He's making life grow out of the ground. Food. Where the cattle sheds were not, cattle sheds are built. The spade labors not, and the granaries shall be heaped. But don't give credit to that Adam guy. advent of the Goths under King Cain into Mesopotamia as the Sumerians and their colonization and civilization of Mesopotamia, Persia, Indus Valley, Egypt, Crete. Where haven't we been? And Europe and the site of King Arthur's Camelot. A full account of the advent of the Goths into Mesopotamia as the so-called Sumerians of Assyriologists and their colonization and civilization of the world is detailed in my recent work. Yeah, did you know for the longest time they just said, Sumerians are Sumerians. We don't know where they came from. The Akkadians, and it's like all these later date people that were, but they were content with not knowing that answer because the answer was Gothic Aryans, and they didn't like that answer. The answer was the same everywhere. They didn't like that answer, so they had to Semitize and like shit all over the world's history. Of the colonization and civilization of the world is detailed in my recent work, The Makers of Civilization and Race and History, which will be the next book we read. I've read it already, so I know that's going to be good. A couple times. From the contemporary and other official historical Sumerian, Babylonian, and Egyptian records, within a century after King Cain's annexation of Mesopotamia and establishment there of his chief sea capital at Enoch, we find about 3245 BC, Cain's grandson as priest king of the city of Kish at an old junction with the Tigris and presumably emperor of Mesopotamia as he deposited the trophy stone bowl of Eden or Holy Grail of his great-grandfather Arthur, right? Thor, to whom he dedicated it to Zag, the great sun temple of Nippur, which he built about 50 miles up the river from Enoch City. This city, generally known as Nippur, after the Arab hamlet of Nifar near its site, was presumably found by King Adam or Arthur himself, as it is frequently called in the Sumerian hymns, the beloved city of Lord Adar, being a frequent title for Thor in the Edda. This is supported not only by its having been selected as the site for depositing King Arthur's Holy Grail, but also by its official name in the later records being City of Lord Zax or Sac, a later form of spelling of King Adar's title of, well, you can also call it Zeus. And yeah. All right. Colonization of, where are we at? I'll go to 400, then we're going to cut it off. Colonization of Persian Gulf and Indus Valley by King Cain's Gothic descendants as the first Phoenician dynasty about 3100 BC. By about 3100 BC, we find the first Phoenician. Remember, there's two different types of Phoenician waves. One of them was much more merchanty than the other, but they always blend them together, and they say that the Phoenicians were a bunch of child killers. Wrong again. But they put this shit in your face, and they smear it in your face to make you not want to look at your own history. And how do they do that best? They give your history their personality, their traits, the things that you find repulsive. To where someone else was talking about this, I think it was Edward Snowman. I was going around looking through everything, when I was writing this book, I'm like, has there been this fucking decent human being in all of history? Do they all have some kind of messed up fucking problem with them? Like, is every person in the Bible is a fucking asshole? Then you realize, okay, because it's because they're lying. It's because it's the same type of people that are poisoning every story. Got it. Well, that's good to know, because now you know that there is nobility. There is something to live up to. It isn't the human condition. There was no original sin, and you can fucking kick these people's asses. All right, so by about 3100 BC, we find the first Phoenician dynasty as a branch of the Aryan Sumerians and descended from Hercules and the chief seafaring branch of the Sumerians established in the vast palatial city port of Lagash on the Persian Gulf, with other capitals at Kish and Erech, or Enoch, and as a mighty imperial colonizing state, the site of two of their great colonies in the Indus Valley, right, India. What was the word? The Ganges area. The Indus Valley have recently been unearthed with vast palatial remains, including numerous official and private seals from their cemeteries, which seals I have deciphered and translated, and which with their culture I have termed Indo-Sumerian and described in a previous work, which would be Makers of Civilization and Race and History. Colonization and civilization of Egypt and Western Europe, including Britain, by Third Phoenician dynasty of Aryans under Sargon I and his son Menes, about 2720 BC. Sargon I was one of our guys. In my work above cited, I have demonstrated by the new historical and contemporary inscriptional evidence that the Third Aryan Phoenician dynasty under Sargon the Great and his father and grandfather were pre-dynastic kings of Egypt, and that the son of Sargon I was Menes, the founder of the first dynasty of Egypt and the so-called first introducer of hieroglyphs into Egypt for continuous writing, and that these hieroglyphs themselves, as well as the radical elements in the ancient Egyptian language, were derived from the Sumerian picture writing and language. And these adventurous Aryan Sumero-Phoenicians and Gothic mariners from Mesopotamia, Asia Minor, and Egypt had already scoured the unknown western seas under Sargon and Menes and established colonies along the western Mediterranean of Europe and out beyond the Pillars of Hercules to the tin mines of Cornwall in ancient Britain. The much remoter dates for the Sumerians in Mesopotamia and for the dates of Menes of the first Egyptian dynasty at present in vogue amongst writers on Sumerian, Mesopotamian, and Egyptian history are found to be merely fanciful conjectures and not founded on concrete historical fact, which also means that gives more credence to the fact that, yes, those pyramids were already there because they're much older than a couple thousand years ago or 4,000 years ago. Arthurian legendary Camelot as Gimli. The name Gimli or Gimla, I guess, which Adam, Arthur, or Arthur appears to have applied to his regenerated Eden or Garden of Eden or to a new capital further down the river, obviously discloses the long-lost original site of the famous capital of Camelot, or Camelot, a Y or an E, of King Arthur's legend. The final T is in series with the final D. The Sumerian locative affix often affixed to place and personal names in the Edda. Camelot was one of the chief cities at which King Arthur held his court with Queen Guinevere, Sir Gawain, and his other knights and ladies in the legends of the Welsh Britons and Britons. The descriptions of the festivals at King Arthur's court at Camelot with its sworn brotherhood went on holiday there in the gay old world of our Gothic ancestors as seen through the glasses of medieval European knightly errantry reflects much of the above picture in the Edda. Arthur the king holds court at Camelot upon a Christmas tide. His princes there were from their many realms together got to hold rich revel that is the flout, I think that says it's a little faded, of care. Quick as the nimble creatures of the air, they met in medley of the tournament, oft times beaten and the fluttering banners rare, and thronged back thence to court the long day spent, sworn brothers all alike to newer merriment. With all the joy in life they met together, each with the lady to himself most dear, caught by the Christmas tide into the tether. Comely was Arthur king. By days there, it's DAIS, but it's by days there, and of all ladies loveliest Guinevere, Eve. Arthur was lofty of spirit, brave in fight. His men attended by the days this new year. His progress brought to the hall many a knight, Agravain and Gawain, pillars of fame, each side the queen attending her behests. And okay, so this talks about the name Edda being basically the knowledge, and they go through the etymology of this, but we're gonna stop here. We'll do one last one. I thought I was gonna get it all done, but a lot of description tonight. So if you haven't seen 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, it's going to take you a while, but I think it's really worth it. If you really if you enjoyed any of this, this was like the less exciting shit compared to what I've already gone over in this. So I implore you, if you care, if you want to know about your ancestors, if you want to know who you are, that even though it's a fucking Jew talking that song, there's a Perry Farrell song where it like the tempo comes up and he goes, "Did you forget who you are?" It's fucking perfect setting for that. It's time to wake the fuck up. Yeah, when you do, it means you also have a. I would say there's an obligation that comes along with the knowledge. Wouldn't you say? Good to go. All right. Everybody, thank you. And thank you to Edward Snowman for the support. Anyone else wants to do it, do it while it's still up. And let's see, best channel on Rumble. I already said that. Looks like I got everybody. Cool. All right, guys. We will do this some other time. Like, maybe tomorrow. I might do a call-in show tomorrow, or I'll probably just finish this up and then get started on the next thing. All right. Later.